Well, hello, good evening, good morning, and good afternoon. I'm Menasong. Hello, degen and professional multiverse wizard, specializing in world building and Waifusmith. Now, floating by my shoulder is Grammary, a succubus who's always open to game or acolyte. But the milking session is for after the stream, because right now, it is time for us to continue reading The Hobbit. Thank you for redeeming the funds, that chaos. Congrats! You got the whole Nairi Grammary, where you can do anything you want with her. She's pretty good with illusions. Thank you for the lurk, cutie. Love ya. Hello, Igraki. I see another cutie taking a little picky. Oh yeah, I didn't show which. Let me see. Which is the. Hello? Weren't you not supposed? Oh, did I accidentally cancel? Okay. There we go. This is today's what do you call background music. I'm enjoying quite a lot these videos. Who's making these videos? Ambient worlds? Well, there's a few channels that make these ambient sounds of music from World of Warcraft. Very nice. Very helpful for these streams of mine. Oh, god damn it. There we go. Now we were at chapter 13. And let's see. What was actually the last thing that happened? Oh shit, yeah. Smaug learned that the men of the lake helped the dwarves. So he went down there to remind them that he's a fucking dragon. He is the lake people. What's actually the name of the place? Lake Town? Lake Town. There is a map at the beginning though. There is a map at the beginning. Here is Gunion, Lordingdale, the running river. Long Lake. Long Lake, dwell man. Oh, okay. There is not actually Where's map? Content map. Lake Town. Lake Town, okay. Oh, it's just that's actually the name of it. very creative naming sense, Tolkien. Very creative naming sense. Lake Town. Because it's a town made on a lake. Yes. Of course. How could it be anything else but Lake Town? I'm just listening to myself for a second, like make sure that the audio is nice. Hello. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Sounds good enough. Sounds good enough to me, I guess. Yeah. Oh, I forgot my water. Let me grab my water and then we'll actually start. No more dilly-dallying, no more delaying, no more stalling. We'll continue the reading. Now, I'm back. I have water. So we shall begin. In the meanwhile, the dwarves sat in darkness, and utter silence fell about them. Little they ate and little they spoke. They could not count the passing of time, and they scarcely dared to move, for the whisper of their voices echoed and rustled in the tunnel. If they dozed, they woke still to darkness and to silence going on unbroken. At last, after days and days of waiting, as it seemed, when they were becoming choked and dazed for want of air, they could bear it no longer, They could almost have welcomed sounds from below the dragon's return. In the silence they feared some cunning devilries of his, but they could not sit there forever. Thorin spoke. "Let us try the door," he said. "I must feel the wind on my face soon or die. I think I'd rather be smashed by smog in the open than suffocating here." So several of the dwarfs got up and groped back to where the door had been. But they found that the upper end of the tunnel had been shattered and blocked with broken rock. Neither key nor the magic it had once obeyed would ever open the door again. "We are trapped," they groaned. "This is the end. We shall die here." Somehow, just then the dwarves were the most despairing. Bilbo felt a strange lightening of the heart, as if a heavy weight had gone from under his waistcoat. "Come, come," he said. "Oh, there's life, there's hope," my father used to say. Well, okay, he's not actually. "Oh, there's life, there's hope," as my father used to say. "And turn time pays for all." I'm going down the tunnel once again. I've been that way twice, when I knew there was a dragon at the other end. So I'll risk a third visit when I'm no longer sure. Anyway, the only way out is down, and I think this time you had better now come with me. In desperation, they agreed, and Thorin was the first to go forward by Bilbo's side. "Now, do be careful," whispered the Hobbit. "As quiet as you can be. There may be no smog at the bottom, but then again, there may be. Don't let us take any unnecessary risks." Down, down they went. The dwarves could not, of course, compare with the Hobbit, real stealth, and they made a deal of puffing and shuffling with echoes magnified alarmingly. But though every now and again Bilbo in fear stopped and listened, not a sound stirred below. Near the bottom, as well as he could judge, Bilbo slipped on his ring and went ahead. But he did not need it. Darkness was complete, and they were all invisible, ring or no ring. In fact, so black was it that the Hobbit came to the opening unexpectedly. Put his hand on air, stumbled forward, and rolled headlong into the hall. There he lay face downwards on the floor and did not dare to get up, or hardly even to breathe, with nothing move. There was not a gleam of light, unless, as it seemed to him, when at last he slowly raised his head, there was a pale white glint above him and far off in the gloom. Certainly it was not a spark of dragon fire, though the warm stench was having the place. The taste of vapor was on his tongue. At length Mr. Baggins could bear it no longer. "Found you, smog, you worm!" he squeaked out loud. "Stop playing hide and seek! Give me a light, and then eat me if you can catch me!" Faint echoes ran around the unseen hall. There was no answer. Bilbo got up and found that he did not know in what direction to turn. "Now I wonder what on earth Smog is playing at," he said. "He's not at home today, or tonight, or whatever it is, I do believe. If I and Glowing have not lost their dinner boxes, perhaps we can make a little light and have a look around before the lockdown." "Light!" he cried. "Can anybody make a light?" The dwarves, of course, were very alarmed when Bilbo fell forward when they stepped with a bump into the door. And they sat huddled just where he had left them, at the end of the tunnel. "Shh! Shh!" they hissed, and they heard his voice. And though that helped the Hobbit find out where they were, it was some time before he could get anything else out of them. But in the end, when Bilbo actually began to stamp on the floor and screaming out "Light!" at the top of his shrill voice, Thorin gave way, and Oin and Glowing were sent back to their bundles at the top of the tunnel. After a while, a twinkling gleam showed them returning. Oin with a small pine torch lighting in his hand, and Glowing with a bundle of others under his arm. Quickly Bilbo trotted to the door and took the torch, but he could not persuade the dwarves to light the others or to come and join him yet. It's a story carefully explained. Mr. Baggins was still officially their expert burglar and investigator. If he liked to risk a light, that was his affair. They would wait in the tunnel for his report. So they sat near the door and watched. They saw the little dark shape of the Hobbit start across the floor holding his tiny light aloft. Every now and again, while he was still near enough, they caught a glint and a twinkle as he stumbled on some golden thing. The light grew smaller as he wandered away into the vast hall. Then he began to rise, dancing into the air. Bilbo was climbing the great mound of treasure. Soon he stood upon the top and still went on. Then they saw him halt and stoop for a moment, but they did not know the reason. It was the Arkenstone, the heart of the mountain, though Bilbo guessed from Thorin's description. But indeed there could not be two such gems, even in so marvelous a hoard, even in all the world. Ever as he climbed, the same white gleam had shone before him and drawn his feet towards it. Slowly grew to a little globe of pallid light. Now as he came near, it was tinged with a flickering sparkle of many colors at the surface, reflected and splintered from the wavering light of his torch. Alas, he looked down upon it, and he caught his breath. The great jewel shone before his feet of its own inner light, and yet, cut and fashioned by the dwarves who had dug it from the heart of the mountain long ago, took all light that fell upon it and changed it into 10,000 sparks of white radiance, shot with glints of the rainbow. Suddenly, Bilbo's arm went towards it, drawn by its enchantment. His small hand would not close about it, for it was a large and heavy gem, but he lifted it, shut his eyes, and put it in his deepest pocket. Now I'm a burglar indeed, thought he, but I suppose they must tell the dwarves about it sometime. They did say I could pick and choose my own share, and I think I'd choose if they took out the rest. All the same, he had an uncomfortable feeling that the picking and choosing had not really been meant to include this marvelous gem, and that trouble would yet come of it. Now he went on again. Down the other side of the great mound he climbed. The spark of his torch vanished from the sight of the watching dwarves, but soon they saw it far away in the distance again. Bilbo was crossing the floor of the hall. He went on until he came to the great doors at the further side, and there a draught of air refreshed, but it almost puffed out his light. He peeped timidly through, and caught a glimpse of great passages, and of the dim beginnings of wide stairs going up into the gloom. And still there was no sight nor sound of smoke. He was just going to turn and go back, when a black shape swooped at him and brushed his face. He squeaked and started, stumbled backwards and fell. His torch dropped head downwards and went out. Only a bat, I suppose, and hope, he said miserably. But now, what am I to do? Which is east, south, north, or west? Soaring, battling, owing, glowing, Billy, Gilly, he cried out as loud as he could. It seemed a thin little noise in the white blackness. The light's gone out! Someone come and fight me and help me! For the moment his courage had failed altogether. Faintly the dwarves heard his small cries, so the only word they could catch was help. Now what on earth or wonder it has happened, said Thorin. Certainly not the dragon, or he would not go on squeaking. They waited a moment or two, and still there were no dragon noises. No sound at all, in fact, but Bilbo's distant voice. Come, one of you, get another light or two, Thorin ordered. It seems we have got to go and help out the burglar. It is about our turn. Okay, I could not hold back this yawn. How many yawns? 174 times. 174 times. We already passed the funny number and the one funny number. Still a long time until the two funny number. Anyway, it is about our turn to help, said Balin. And am I quite willing to go? Anyway, I expected it safe for the moment. Glowing lit several more torches, and then they all crept out, one by one, and went along the wall as hurriedly as they could. It was not long before they met Bilbo himself, coming back towards them. His wits had quickly returned as soon as he saw the twinkle of their light. "Only a bat and a dropped torch, nothing worse," he said in answer to their questions. Though they were much relieved, they were inclined to be grumpy at being frightened for nothing. What they would have said if he had told them at that moment about the arcane stone, I don't know. The mere fleeting glimpses of treasure which they had caught as they went along had rekindled all the fire of their dwarvish hearts. And when the heart of a dwarf, in the most respectable, is wakened by gold and by jewels, he grows suddenly bold, and he may become fierce. The dwarves indeed no longer needed any urging. All were now eager to explore the hall while they had the chance, and willing to believe that, for the present, Smaug was away from home. Each now gripped a lighted torch, and as they gazed, first on one side and then on another, they forgot fear and even caution. They spoke aloud and cried out to one another, as they lifted old treasures from the mound or from the wall and held them in the light, caressing and fingering them. Tilly and Killy were almost in merry mood, and finding still hanging there many golden harps strung with silver, they took them and struck them, and being magic. What the fuck? Oh god, I lost myself. Fingering indeed. Gotta finger the golden harps. Wink wink nudge nudge. And finding still hanging there many golden harps strung with silver, they took them and struck them, and being magical, and also untouched by the dragon, who had small interesting music, they were still in tune. Also, hello Eric's, how are you doing? The dark hall was filled with a melody that had long been silent, but most of the dwarves were more practical. They gathered gems and stuffed their pockets, and let what they could not carry fall back through their fingers with a sigh. Thorin was not least among these. Always he searched from side to side for something which he could not find. It was the arcane stone, but he spoke of it yet to no one. Now the dwarfs took down mail and weapons from the walls, and armed themselves. Royal indeed did Thorin look, clad in a coat of gold-plated rings, with a silver hafted axe, in a belt crusted with scarlet stone. "Mr. Baggins," he cried, "here is the first payment of your reward. Cast off your old coat and put on this." With that, he put on Bilbo a small coat of mail, wrought for some young elf prince long ago. It was of silver steel, which the elves call mithril, and with it went a belt of pearls and crystals, a light helm of figured leather, strengthened beneath with hoops of steel, and studded about the brim with white gems, was set upon the hobbit's head. "I feel magnificent," he thought, "but I expect to look rather absurd. How they would laugh on the hill at home. Still, I wish there was a looking glass handy." All the same, Mr. Baggins kept his head more clear of the bewitchment of the hoard than the dwarves did. Long before the dwarves were tired of examining the treasures, he became aware of it and sat down on the floor. He began to wonder nervously what the end of it all would be. "I'd give a many gold. I would give a good many of these precious goblets," he thought, "for a drink of something cheering out of one of Bjorn's wooden bows." "Thorin!" he cried out loud. "What next? We are armed. What good has any ammo ever been against Smaug the Dreadful? This treasure is not yet won back. We are not looking for gold yet, or for a way of escape, and you have tempted luck too long." "You speak the truth," answered Thorin, recovering his wits. "Let us go. I will guide you. Not in 1,000 years should I forget the ways of this palace." Then he hailed the others, and they gathered together. and holding their torches above their heads, they passed through the gaping doors, now without many a backward glance of longing. Their glittering mail they had covered again with their old cloaks, and their bright helms with their tattered hoods, and one by one they walked behind Thorin. A line of little lights in the darkness had halted off them, listening fear once more for any rumor of the dragon's coming. Though all the old adornments were long mouldered or destroyed, and though all was befouled and blasted with the comings and goings of the monsters, Thorin knew every passage and every turn. They climbed long stairs, and turned and went down a wide echoing way, and turned again and climbed yet more stairs and yet more stairs again. His words moved, but out of the living rock, broad and fair, and up the dwarves went, and they met no sign of any living thing, only furtive shadows that fled from the approach of their torches fluttering their draughts. The steps were not made all the same for Hobbit legs, and Bilbo was just feeling that he could go on no longer, when suddenly the roof sprang high and far beyond the reach of their torchlight. A white glimmer could be seen coming through some opening far above, and the air smelled sweeter. Before them light came dimly through great doors that hung twisted on their hinges and half burned. "This is the great chamber of Thror," said Thorin. "The hall of feasting and of council. Not far off now is the front gate." They passed through the ruined chamber. Tables were rotting there. Chairs and benches were lying there, overturned, charred, and decaying. Skulls and bones were upon the floor, among flagons and boughs and broken drinking horns and dust. As they came through yet more doors at the further end, the sound of water fell upon their ears, and the grey light grew suddenly more full. "There is the birth of the running river," said Thorin. "Come here, it hastens to the gate. Let us follow it." Out of a dark opening, a wall of rock, there issued a boiling water, and it flowed thrilling in a narrow channel, carved and made straight and deep by the cunning of ancient hands. Beside it ran a stone-paved road, wide enough for many men abreast. Swiftly along thus they ran, and round the wide sweeping turn, and behold, before them stood the broad light of day. In front of them rose a tall arch, still showing the fragments of old carving work within, worn and splintered and blackened though it was. A misty sun sent its pale light between the arms of the mountain, and beams of gold fell on the pavement at the threshold. A whirl of bats frightened from slumber, where their smoking torches flurried over them. As they sprang forward, their feet slithered on the stones rubbed smooth and slime by the passing of the dragon. Now before them the water fell noisily outward and foamed down towards the valley. They flung their pale torches to the ground, and stood gazing out with dazzled eyes. They were come to the front gate when they were looking out upon Dale. "Well," said Bilbo, "I never expected to be looking out at this door. I never expected to be so pleased to see the sun again and to feel the wind on my face. But ow, this wind is cold." He was. A bitter easterly breeze blew with a threat of oncoming winter. It swirled over and around the arms of the mountain into the valley, and sighed among the rocks. After the long time in the stewing depths of the dragon-haunted caverns, they shivered in the sun. Suddenly, Bilbo realized that he was not only tired, but also very hungry indeed. "It seems to be late morning," he said, "and so I suppose it is more or less breakfast time. If there's any breakfast to have, but I don't feel the smogs from the doorsteps, the safest place for a meal. Do let's go somewhere where we can sit quiet for a bit." "Quite right," said Balin, "and I think I know which way we should go. We ought to make for the old lookout post at the southwest corner of the mountain. How far is that? Asked the Hobbit.
5 hours march, I should think. It'll be rough going. The road from the gate along the left edge of the stream seems all broken up. But look down there. The river loops suddenly east across Dale in front of the ruined town. At that point there was once a bridge, leading into steep stairs that climbed up the right bank, and so to a road running towards Raven Hill. There is, or was, a path that left the road and climbed up to the post. I climbed too, even if the old steps are still there. Dear me, grumbled the Hobbit. More walking and more climbing without breakfast. I wonder how many breakfasts and other meals we have missed inside the nasty, clockless, timeless hole. As a matter of fact, 2 nights and a day between had gone by, and not out together without food, since the dragon smashed the magic door. But Bilbo had quite lost count, and it might have been 1 night or a week of nights for all he could tell. Come, said Thorin, laughing. His spirits had begun to rise again, and he rattled the precious stones in his pockets. Don't call my palace a nasty hole! You wait till it has been cleaned and redecorated. Be until Smaug's dead, said Bilbo glumly. In the meanwhile, where is he? I'll give a good breakfast, you know. I hope he's not up on the mountain looking down at us. That idea disturbed the dwarves mightily, and they quickly decided that Bilbo and Balin were right. He must move away from here, said Thorin. I feel as his eyes were on the back of my head. A nasty hole? It'll be a nasty hole once all the dwarves are there, partying up with their bearded dwarf women. Reminder: female dwarves are bearded in this world. So just imagine the male dwarfs and the female dwarfs together, partying up in the palace after he gets all the bitches, because of course he gotta repopulate. There's gonna be a repopulation of the palace. They need more people after all. They're gonna need more people after all. Indeed, I curse thee with this image. It's a cold, lonesome place, said Bombur. There may be drink, but I see no sign of food. A dragon would always be hungry in such parts. Come on, cried the others. Let us follow Balin's path. Under the rocky wall, to the right side, there was no path. So on they trudged among the stones on the left side of the river, and the emptiness and desolation soon sobered even Thorin again. The bridge the Balin had spoken of they found long fallen, and most of its stones were now only boulders in the shallow, noisy stream. But they forded the water without much difficulty, and found the ancient steps, and climbed the high bank. After going a short way, they struck the old road, and before long came to a deep dell sheltered among the rocks. There they rested for a while, and had such a breakfast as they could, chiefly cram and water. If you want to know what cram is, I can only say that I don't know the recipe, but this biscuit dish keeps good indefinitely. It's supposed to be sustaining, and is certainly not entertaining, being in fact very uninteresting, except as a chewing exercise. It was made by the late man for a long journey. After that they went on again, and now the road struck westwards and left the river, and the great shoulder of the south pointing mountain spur drew even nearer. At length they reached the hill path. They scrambled steeply up, and they plodded slowly one behind the other, till at last in the late afternoon they came to the top of the ridge, and saw the wintry sun going downwards to the west. Here they found a flat place without a wall on 3 sides, but back to the north by a rocky face in which there was an opening like a door. From that door there was a wide view east and south and west. Here, said Balin, in the old days we used always to keep watchmen, and the door behind leads into a rock-hewn chamber that was made here as a guard room. There were several places like it round the mountain, but there seemed small need watching in the days of our prosperity, and the guards were made over comfortable, perhaps. Otherwise, we might have had longer warning of the coming of the dragon, and things might have been different. Still, here we can now lie hidden, sheltered for a while, and can see much without being seen. Not much use we have been seen coming here. The Doring was always looking up towards the mountain's peak, as if he expected to see Smog perched there like a bird on a steeple. "You must take a chance of that," said Thorin. "We can go no further today." "Here, here!" cried Bilbo, and flung himself on the ground. In the rock chamber there would have been room for 100, and there was a small chamber further in, more removed from the cold outside. It was quite deserted. Not even wild animals seemed to have used in all the days of Smog's dominion. There they laid their burdens, and some threw themselves down at once and slept. But the others sat near the outer door and discussed their plans. In all their talk, they came perpetually back to one thing. Where was Smog? They looked west and there was nothing, and east there was nothing, and in the south there was no sign of the dragon. But there was a gathering of very many birds. At that they gazed and wondered, but they are no nearer understanding it, when the first cold stars came out. Chapter 14. Fire and Water. Fire in water? Why? Why? I don't understand. Now, if you wish, like the dwarves, to hear news of Smog, you must go back again to the evening when he smashed the door and flew off in rage 2 days before. Oh, the name of Lake Tal is Esgaroth, okay. The men of Lake Tal Esgaroth were mostly indoors, but the breeze was from the black east and chill. But a few were walking on the quays and watching, as they were fond of doing. The stars shine out from the smooth patches of the lake as they open in the sky. From their town, the lonely mountain was mostly screened by the low hills. At the far end of the lake, through a gap in which the running river came down from the north. Only its high peak could they see in clear weather, and they looked seldom at it, for it was ominous and drear even in the light of morning. Now it was lost and gone, blotted in the dark. Suddenly, it flicked back to view. A brief glow touched it and faded. "Look," said one. "Lights again. Last night the watchman saw them start and fade from midnight until dawn. Something is happening up there." "Perhaps the king under the mountain is forging gold," said another. "It is long since he went north. It is time the songs began to prove themselves again." "Which king?" said another with a green voice. "As like as not, it is the marauding fire of the dragon. The only king on the mountain we have ever known." "You always foreboding gloomy things," said the others. "Anything from floods to poisoned fish, or something cheerful." Then suddenly a great light appeared in the low place in the hills, and to the northern end of the lake turned golden. "The king beneath the mountain!" they shouted. "His wind is like the sun, his silver like the fountain, his rivers golden run." "The river is running gold from the mountain!" they cried, and everywhere windows were opening and feet were hurrying. There was once more a tremendous excitement and enthusiasm. But the green voice fellow ran hot-foot to the master. "The dragon is coming, or am I a fool?" he cried. "Cut the bridges! To arms! To arms!" Then warning trumpets were suddenly sounded, and echoed along the rocky shore. The cheering stopped, and the joy was turned to dread. So it was that the dragon did not find them quite unprepared. Before long, so great was his speed, they could see him as a spark of fire, rushing towards them and growing ever hungrier and more bright. And not the most foolish doubted that the prophecies had gone rather wrong. Still, they had a little time. Every vessel in the town was filled with water, every warrior was armed, every arrow and dart was ready, and the bridge to the land was thrown down and destroyed. Before the roar of Smaug's terrible approach grew loud, and the lake rippled red as fire beneath the awful beating of his wings. Amid shrieks and wailing and the shouts of men, he came over them, swept towards the bridge, and was foiled. The bridge was gone, and his enemies were on an island in deep water, too deep and dark and cool for his liking. He plunged into it. A vapor and a steam would rise enough to cover all the land with a mist for days. But the lake was mightier than he. It would quench him before he could pass through. Roaring, he swept back over the town. A hail of dark arrows leaped up and snapped and rattled on his scales and dew, and their shafts fell back, kindled by his breath, burning and hissing into the lake. No fireworks you ever imagined equaled the sights that night. At the twanging of the bows and the shrilling of the trumpets, the dragon's wrath blazed to its height. Still, he was blind and mad with it. No one had dared to give battle to him for many an age, nor would they have dared now if it had not been for the green-voiced man. Bard was his name. Ran to and fro, cheering on the archers and urging the master toward him to fight to the last arrow. Fire leaped from the dragon's jaws. He circled for a while high in the air above them, lighting out the lake. The trees by the shore shone like copper, and like blood with leaping shadows of dense black at their feet. Then down he swooped straight through the arrow storm, reckless in his rage, taking no heed to turn his scaly sides towards his foes, seeking only to set their town ablaze. Fire leaped from thatched roofs and wooden beams as he hurtled down, past and round again, though all had been drenched with water before he came. Once more water was flung by 100 hands whenever a spark appeared. Back swirled the dragon. A sweep of his tail and the roof of the great house crumbled and smashed down. Flames unquenchable sprang high into the night. Another swoop and another house, and then another sprang afire and fell. And still no arrow hindered Smaug or hurt him more than a fly from the Martian. Already men were jumping into the water on every side. Women and children being huddled into laden boats in the market pool. Weapons were flung down. There was mourning and weeping, where but a little time ago the old songs of mirth to come had been sung among the dwarfs. Now men cursed their names. The master himself was turning to his great gilded boat, hoping to row away in the confusion and save himself. Soon all the town would be deserted and burned down to the surface of the lake. That was the dragon's hope. They could all get into boats for all he cared. There he could have fine sport hunting them, or they could stop till they starved. Let them try to get to land and he would be ready. Soon he would set all the shoreland woods ablaze with wither, and wither every field and pasture. Just now he was enjoying the sport with town baiting more than he had enjoyed anything for years. But there was still a company of archers that held their ground among the burning houses. Their captain was Bard, green-voiced and green-faced, whose friends had accused him of prophesying floods and poison fish. Though they knew his worth and courage, he was a descendant in a long line of Girion, Lord of Dale, whose wife and child had escaped down the running river from the ruin long ago. Now he shot with a great yew bow, till all his arrows but one were spent. The flames were near him, his companions were leaving him. He bent his bow for the last time. Suddenly, out of the dark, something fluttered to his shoulder. Started, but it was only an old thrush. Unafraid, it perched by his ear and brought him news. Marveling, he found he could understand its tongue, for he was of the race of Dale. Wait, it said to him, "The moon is rising! Look for the hollow, the left breast, as it flies and turns above you." And while Bard paused in wonder, it told him of tidings up in the mountain, and all of that it had heard. Then Bard drew his bowstring to his ear. The dragon was circling back, flying low, And as he came to moon rose above the eastern shore and silvered his great wings. Tolkien lacks a little bit of commas in important places. The dragon was circling back, flying low, and as he came, the moon rose above the eastern shore and silvered his great wings. Arrow, said the bowman, black arrow! I saved you to the last. You have never failed me, and always I have recovered you. Yep. Well, I had a small interruption. And where was I? Wait, did I actually unmute properly? Yes, I unmute properly. Arrow, said the bowman. Black arrow! I have saved you to the last. You have never failed me, and I have always recovered you. I had you from my father, and he from of old. If ever you came from the forges of the true king under the mountain, go now, and speed well. The dragon swooped once more, lower than ever, and as he turned and dived down, his belly glittered white with sparkling fires of gems in the moon, but not in one place. The great bow twanged. The black arrow sped straight from the string, straight for the hollow by the left breast where the foreleg was flung wide. In it smote and vanished, barb, shaft, and feather. So fierce was its flight. With a shriek that deafened men, fell trees and split stone, smog shot spouting into the air, turned over and then crashed down high in ruin. Full on town he fell. His last throw splintered it to sparks and glades. The lake roared in. A vast steam leaped up, white in the sudden dark under the moon. There was a hiss, a gushing whir, and then silence. And that was the end of Smog and Esgaroth, but not of Bard. The waxing moon rose higher and higher, and the wind grew loud and cold. It twisted the white fog into bending pillars and hurrying clouds, and drove it off to the west to scatter in tattered shreds over the marshes before Mirkwood. Then the many boats could be seen dotted dark on the surface of the lake, and down the wind came the voices of the people of Esgaroth, lamenting their lost town and goods and ruined houses. But they had really much to be thankful for. Had they thought of it, though it could hardly be expected that they should just then. 3/4 of the people of the town had at least escaped alive. Their woods and fields and pastures and cattle, and most of their boats remained undamaged. The dragon was dead. What that meant they had not yet realized. They gathered in mournful crowds upon the western shore, shivering in the cold wind, and their first complaints and anger were against the master who had left the town so soon, while some were still willing to defend it. He may have a good head for business, especially his own business, some murmured, but he's no good when anything serious happens. And they praised the courage of Bard in his last mighty shot. If only he had not been killed, they all said. We would make him a king. Bard, the dragon shooter of the line of Girion. Alas that he is lost. In the very midst of their talk, a tall figure stepped from the shadows. He was drenched with water, his black hair hung wet over his face, shoulders, and a fierce light was in his eyes. Bard is not lost, he cried. He died from Esgaroth when the enemy was slain. I am Bard of the line of Girion. I am the slayer of the dragon. King Bard! King Bard! They shouted, but the master ground his shattering teeth. Girion was Lord of Dale, not King of Esgaroth, he said. In the lake town we have always elected master from among the old and wise, have not endured the rule of mere fighting men. Let King Bard go back to his own kingdom. Dale is now freed by his valor, and nothing hinders his return. And any that wishes can go with him. If they prefer the cold stones under the shadow of the mountain to the green shores of the lake, the wise will stay here and hope to rebuild our town and enjoy again in time its peace and riches. We will have King Bard, and the people near at hand shouted in reply. We had enough of the old men and the money counters. And people further off took up the cry. Up the bowmen and down with the money bags. To the clamor echoed along the shore. I am the last man to undervalue Bard the bowman, said the master wearily. For Bard now stood close beside him. He has tonight earned an eminent place in the roll of the benefactors of our town, and he is worthy of many imperishable songs. But why, O people? And here the master rose to his feet and spoke very loud and clear. Why do get all of your blame? For what fault am I to be deposed? Who aroused the dragon from his slumber, I might ask? Who obtained of us richer gifts and ample help, and led us to believe that oak songs could come true? Who played on our soft hearts and our pleasant fancies? What sort of gold have they sent down the river to reward us? Dragon fire and ruin! From whom should we claim the recompense of our damage and wait for our widows and orphans? As you see, the master had not got his position for nothing. The result of his word was that for the moment, the people quite forgot their idea of a new king and turned their angry thoughts towards Thorin and his company. Wild and bitter words were shouted from many sides. And some of those who had sung the old songs loudest were now heard as loudly crying that the dwarves had steered the dragon up against them deliberately. "Oh," said Bard, "why waste words in wrath on those unhappy creatures? Doubtless they perished first in fire before his mouth came to us." Then even as he was speaking, the thought came into his heart of the fabled treasure of the mountain, lying without guard or owner, and he fell suddenly silent. He thought the master's words of they were built and filled with golden bells if he could but find the man. "Mana, hello there, son. Are you awake again? Wait, why have you not went to sleep yet? How are you doing, thou son of down?" At length he spoke again. "This is no time for angry words, master, or for considered and weighty plans of change. There is work to do. I serve you still. After a while I may think again of your words and go north with any that will follow me." "Read me to sleep, Daddy. Of course, sonny. Of course, my cute son. Get yourself comfortable and enjoy The Hobbit, Part 6. Part 6. Part 5. We may be able to actually finish it today. Anyway. Then he strode off to help in the ordering of the camps, and in the care of the sick and the wounded. But the master scowled at his back as he went, and remained sitting on the ground. He thought much but said little, unless it was to call loudly for men to bring him fire and food. Now everywhere Bard went, he found talk running like fire among the people concerning the vast treasure that was now unguarded. Men spoke of the recompense for all their harm that they would soon get from it, and wealth over and to spare with which to buy rich things from the south. And it cheered them greatly in their plight. That was as well, for the night was bitter and miserable. Shelters could be contrived for few. The master had one, and there was little food. Even the master went short. Many took ill of wet and cold and sorrow that night, and afterwards died, who had escaped uninjured from the ruin of the town. And in the days that followed, there was much sickness and great hunger. Meanwhile, Bard took the lead and ordered things as he wished, though always in the master's name, and he had a hard task to govern the people and direct the preparations for the protection and housing. Probably most of them would have perished in the winter that had now hurried after autumn, if help had not been to hand. But help came swiftly. For Bard at once had speedy messengers sent up the river to the forest to ask the aid of the king of the elves of the wood, and these messengers had found the host already on the move. Although it was then only the third day after the fall of Small, the elven king had received news from his own messengers and from the birds that love his folk, and already knew much of what had happened. Very great indeed was the commotion among all things with wings that dwelt on the borders of the desolation of the dragon. The air was filled with circling flocks, and their swift flying messengers flew here and there across the sky. Above the borders of the forest there was a whistling and crying and piping. Far over Mirkwood tidings spread. Smog is dead! Leaves rustled and startled ears were lifted. Even before the Elven King rode forward, the news had passed west, right to the pine woods of the Misty Mountains. Bjorn had heard it in his wooden house, and the goblins were at council in their caves. That will be the last we shall hear of Tolkien Oakenshield. Thorin Oakenshield, I fear, said the king. You would have done better to have remained my guest. It is an ill wind all the same, he added, that blows no one any good. For he too had not forgotten the legend of the Wealth of Dror. So it was that Bard's messengers found him now marching with many spearmen and bowmen. And crowds were gathered thick above him, for they thought the war was awakening again, such as had not been in those parts for a long age. But the king, when he received the prayers of Bard, had pity, for he was the lord of a good and kindly people. So turning his march, which had at first been directed towards the mountain, he hastened now down the river to the long lake. He had not boats or rafts enough for his host, and they were forced to go the slower way by foot. But great store of goods he sent ahead by water. You elves are light-footed, and though they were not in these days much used to the marches and the treacherous lands between the forest and the lake, their going was swift. Only 5 days after the death of the dragon, they came upon the shores and looked on the ruins of the town. Their welcome was good, as may be expected, and the men and their master were ready to make any bargain for the future in return for the Elven King's aid. Their plans were soon made. With the women and the children, the old and the unfit, the master remained behind, and with him were some men of crafts and many skilled elves. And they busied themselves felling trees and collecting the timber sent down from the forest. Then they set about raising many huts by the shore against the oncoming winter. And also under the master's direction they began the planning of a new town, designed more fair and large even than before, but not in the same place. They removed northward higher up the shore, for ever after they had a dread of the water where the dragon lay. He will never again return to his golden bed, but was stretched cold as stone, twisted upon the floor of the shallows. There for ages his huge bones could be seen calm weather amid the ruined piles of the old town. But few dared to cross the cursed spot, and none dared to dive into the shivering water, or recover the precious stones that fell from his rotting carcass. But all the men of arms were still able, and the most of the Elven King's array got ready to march north to the mountain. It was thus that in elven days from the ruin of the town, the head of their host passed the rock gates at the end of the lake and came into the desolate land. Chapter 50, The Gathering of the Clouds. Right on time for an ad break. I'm gonna stretch a little bit, grab a little more snack, and then we'll be right on back in 3 minutes or so. See you guys soon.
Well, we are back. Wait, what is it? Oh, wrong scene. Oops. This is the right scene. And I forgot the music. There we go. Here we go. We got music now. Chapter 15. The Gathering of the Clouds. The quick little snacking, damn. Unfortunately, it took more than 3 minutes, I believe. But oh well, oh well. Let's just move on and continue reading. Now we will return to Bilbo and the dwarves. All night, one of them had watch. Hang on, my dogs want to howl. A second. Please, doggos, no talking right now. No. Your opinion, yes, your opinion is appreciated, but please keep wait until the stream is over for the questions. Anyway. All night, one of them had watched. When the morning came, they had not heard or seen any sign of danger. But ever more thickly the birds were gathering. The companies came flying from the south, and the crowds that still live above the mountain were wheeling and crying unceasingly above. Something strange is happening, said Thorin. The time has gone for the autumn wanderings, and these are birds that dwell always in the land. There are starlings and flocks and finches, and far off there are many carrion birds as if a battle were afoot. Suddenly Bilbo pointed. There is that old thrush again, he cried. He seems to have escaped when his Smaug smashed the mountainside, but I don't suppose the snails have. Sure enough, the old thrush was there, and as Bilbo pointed, he flew towards them and perched on a stone nearby. Then he fluttered his wings and sang. Then he cocked his head on one side as if to listen, and again he sang, and again he listened. I believe he's trying to tell us something, said Bonnie. But I cannot follow the speech of such birds. It's very quick and difficult. Can you make it out, Baggins? Not very well, said Bilbo. As a matter of fact, he could make nothing of it at all. But the old fellow seems very excited. I only wish he was a raven, said Polly. I thought you did not like them. You seemed very shy of them when you came this way before. Those were growl. Nasty, suspicious-looking creatures at that. They're rude as well. Must have heard the ugly names they were calling after us. But the ravens are different. There used to be great friendship between them and the people of Tror, and they oft brought us secret news, and were rewarded with such bright things as they coveted to hide in their dwellings. They live many a year, and their memories are long, and they hand on their wisdom to their children. I knew many among the ravens of the rocks when I was a dwarf lad. This very height was once named Raven Hill, because there was a wise and famous pair, old Kark and his wife, that lived here above the guard chamber. But I suppose that any of that ancient breed linger here now. No sooner had he finished speaking than the old thrush gave a loud caw, and immediately flew away. You may not understand him, but the old bird understands us, I am sure, said Balin. Keep watch now, and see what happens. For long, there was a fluttering of wings, and back came the thrush. And with him came a most decrepit old bird. He was getting blind, he could hardly fly, and the top of his head was bald. He was an aged raven of great size. He alighted stiffly on the ground before them, slowly flapped his wings, and bobbed towards Thorin. Oh, Thorin, son of Thrain, and Balin, son of Funding, he croaked. And Bilbo couldn't understand what he said, for he used ordinary language and not bird speech. I am Uruk, son of Kak. He's dead. He was well known to you once. It is 100 years and 53 since I came out of the egg, but I don't forget what my father told me. Now I am the chief of the great ravens of the mountain. We are few, but we remember still the king that was of old. Most of my people are abroad, but there are great tidings in the south. Some have tidings of joy to you, and some do not think so good. Behold! Wait. Oh no, it's still the old bird. Behold! The birds are getting back again to the mountain into Dale from south and east and west. The word has gone out that Smog is dead. Dead? Dead? Shouted the dwarves. Dead. Then we have been needless fear. The treasure is ours. They all sprang up and began to caper about for joy. Yes, dead, said the Ruach. How do I even pronounce this? Because there's like a word there, like a umlaut. Umlaut. Umlaut.
Roak.
Roak. Okay, nothing special. Whatever. The thrush may his feathers never fall. Saw him die, and we may trust his words. We saw him fall in battle with the men of Esgara the third night back from now, the rising of the moon. It was some time before Thorin could bring the dwarfs to be silent and listen to the raven's news. At length, when he had told all the tale of the battle, he went on. So much for joy. Thorin woke in shield. You may go back to your halls in safety. All the treasure is yours. Moment. Romania gathering hither beside the birds. The news of the death of the guardian has already gone far and wide, and the legend of wealth of Thor has not lost in the telling during many years. Many are eager for a share of the spoil. Already a host of elves is on the way, and carrion birds are within, hoping for battle and slaughter. By the lake men murmur that their sorrows are due to the wars, but they are homeless and many have died, and Smog has destroyed their town. They too think to find amends from your treasure, whether you're alive or dead. Yeah, they are actually in the right for doing that. Your own wisdom must decide your cause, but 13 is small remnant of the great folk of Durin that once dwelt here, and now are scattered far. You listen to my counsel. You will not trust the master of the lake man, but rather him that shot the dragon with his bow. Bard is he, of the race of Dale, of the line of Girion. He's a green man but true. We would see peace once more among dwarves and men and elves after the long desolation. But it may cost you dear in gold. I have spoken. Then Thorin burst forwards in anger. Our thanks, Ruach, son. You and your people shall not be forgotten, but none of our gold shall thieves take or the violent carry off while we are alive. If you'd earn our thanks still more, bring us near of any that are near. Also, I would beg of you, if any of you are still young and strong of wing, that you send messengers to our kin in the mountains of the north, both west from here and east, and tell them of our plight. But go specing to my cousin Dane in the Iron Hills, for he has many people well armed and dwells nearest to this place. Bid him hasten. I will not say if this counsel be good or bad, cried Ruach, but I will do what can be done. Then off he slowly flew. Back now to the mountain, cried Thorin. We have a little time to lose. A little food to use, cried Bilbo, always practical on such points. In any case, he found that the adventure was, properly speaking, over with the death of the dragon, in which he was much mistaken, and would have given most of his share of the profits for the peaceful winding up of these affairs. Back to the mountain, cried the dwarfs, as they had not heard him. So back he had to go with them. The dwarves fucked up royally. The dwarves fucked up royally. They woke up the dragon. They did not have a plan to kill the dragon, and the dragon just destroyed someone else's town. Like, they fucked up. They it's not their fault that all those people died, because they did not know how to deal with the dragon, and so the dragon just left, and the dragon thinks, Lamau, fucking. I guess Tolkien wanted the people to be flawed, but still, there is a certain kind of flaw that's not very forgivable. Moving on. As you have heard some of the events already, you will see that the dwarves still had some days before them. They explored the caverns once more and found, as they expected,
Only the front gate remained open. All the other gates, except of course the small secret door, had long ago been broken and blocked by smog, and no sign of them remained. So now they began to labor hard in fortifying the main entrance, and in making a new path that led from it. Tools were to be found in plenty that the miners and quarriers and builders of old had used, and as such work the dwarves were still very skilled. As they worked, the ravens brought them constant tidings. In this way they learned that the Elven King had turned aside to the lake, and they still had a breathing space. Better still, they heard that 3 of their ponies had escaped and were running wild far down the banks of the running river, not far from where the rest of their stores had been left. So while the others went on with their work, Fitting and Keely was sent, guided by a raven, to find the ponies and bring back all they could. They were 4 days gone, and by the time they knew that the joint armies of the Lakemen and the Elves were hurrying towards the mountain. But now their hopes were higher. But they had food for some weeks with care. Chiefly cram, of course, and they were very tired of it. For cram is much better than nothing. And already the gate was blocked with a wall of squared stones laid dry, very thick and high across the opening. There were holes in the wall through which they could see or shoot, but no entrance. They climbed in or out with ladders, and a hall stuffed up with ropes. For the issuing of the stream they had contrived a small low arch under the new wall. But near the entrance they had so altered the narrow band that a wide pool stretched from the mountain wall to the head of the fall, over which the stream went towards Dale. Approach to the gate was now only possible without swimming along a narrow ledge of the cliff, to the right as one looked outwards from the wall. The ponies they had brought only to the head of the steps above the old bridge, and unloading them there had bidden them return to their masters and sent them back riderless to the south. There came a night when suddenly there were many lights as of fires and torches away south in Dale before them. "They have come," called Balin, "and their camp is very great. They must come into the valley under the cover of dusk along both banks of the river." That night the dwarves slept little. The morning was still pale when they saw a company approaching. From behind their wall they watched them come up to the valley's end and climb slowly up. Before long they could see the boatmen of the lake armed as if for war, and elvish bowmen were among them. At length the foremost of these climbed the tumble rocks and appeared at the top of the falls. And very great was their surprise to see the pool before them, and the gate blocked with a wall of new hewn stone. As they stood pointing and speaking to one another, Thorin hailed them. "Who are you?" he called in a very low voice. "I come as if in war to the gates of Thorin, son of Tring, king of the mountain. And what do you desire?" But they answered nothing. Some turned swiftly back, and the others, after gazing for a while at the gate and its defenses, soon followed them. That day the camp was moved to the east of the river, right between the arms of the mountain. The rocks echoed then with voices and with song, as they had not done for many a day. There was the sound, too, of elven harps and of sweet music, and as it echoed up towards them, it seemed that the hue of the air was warmed, and they caught faintly the fragrance of woodland flowers blossoming in spring. Then Bilbo longed to escape from the dark fortress, and to go down enjoying the mirth and feasting by the fires. Some of the younger dwarves were moved in their hearts too, and they muttered that they wished things had fallen out or otherwise, and that they might welcome such folk as friends. But Thorin scowled. Then the dwarves themselves brought forth harps and instruments gleaming from the horn, and made music to soften his mood. But the song was not a elvish song, it was much like the song they had sung long before in Bilbo's little Hobbit home. Alright, another little poem. Under the mountain dark and tall, the king has come into his home. His foe is dead, the worm of bread, and ever so his foe shall fall. The sword is sharp, the spear is long, the arrow swift, the gate is strong. The heart is broke, the looks on gold, the dwarves no more shall suffer wrong. The dwarves of yore made mighty spell, All hummus fell like ringing bells. In places deep where dark things lay, in hollows howl beneath the fell. On silver necklaces they strung, the light of stars on crowns they hung. The dragon fire from twisted wire, the melodies of orbs they rung. The mountain throne once more is freed, oh wandering folk this summons heed. Come haste across the ways, the king of friend and king has need. Now cow we over mountains go, come back to the cavern zone. He at the gate the king awaits, his hands are rich with gems and gold. The king is come unto his hall, under the mountain dark and tall. The worm of dread is lain and dead, and ever so our foe shall fall. Man, I doesn't know the Misty Mountain song. I heard it on the music, but the movie before, but I don't exactly remember it anymore. I don't exactly remember it anymore. I'm not sure if like this. Well, this is not the Misty Mountain song. I mean, I've heard, I've sung it well from the book, but it's been a long time since I watched the movie. Yeah, that's one of the verses. Yeah, but this is a different one. I sung the actual one when it was like on the book, at the beginning of the book. Just need to go back in time. Oh my god. But I don't know if like I sung it correctly because I don't know poetry. I don't know how to sing. I don't know music. It's all part of the same thing. It will be the same melody. Well, I don't understand what melody is. Low, lemon. So I just read it in a singing voice. I should actually take a look into it later. Oh, you remember me to actually look into it. Oh shit. I mean, actually, let's see. Misty Mountain song. Okay, there he is. I can watch it later. Right now we're doing here. Yeah, there's a lot of them in the. There are a lot of them in the. Oh, this is a 74 full verse. Okay. How long is this one? Let's see. 16 minutes? What the fuck? Okay. Anyway, how am I supposed to know how the melody is like from a book? Where does the melody come from? Who created this melody and such? Who decided it was supposed to be like this? I have no idea. Anyway, the song appeared to please Thorin, and he smiled again and grew merry, and he began reckoning the distance to the Iron Hills, and how long will be before Dane could reach the lonely mountain. He had set out as soon as the message had reached him. But Bilbo's heart fell. Both of the song and the talk, they sounded much too warlike. The next morning early, a company of spearmen was seen crossing the river and marching up the valley. They bore with them the green banner of the Elven King and the blue banner of the lake, and they advanced until they stood right before the wall and the gate. Again Thorin hailed them in a loud voice. Who are you to come warm for war to the gates of Thorin, son of Thrain, king under the mountain? This time he was answered. A tall man stood forward, dark of hair and grim of face, and he cried, Hey, O Thorin! Why do you fancy yourself like a robber in his hold? We are not yet foes, and we rejoice that you are alive beyond our hope. We came expecting to find none living here, yet now that we are met, there is a matter for parley and a council. Who are you, and of what would you parley? I am bad, and by my hand was the dragon's lay, and your treasure delivered. Not a matter that concerns you. Is that not a matter that concerns you? Moreover, I am by right descendant the heir of Irion of Dea, and in your hoard is mingled much of the wealth of his halls and towns. which of old Smog stole, is not that a matter of which we may speak? Further, in his last battle, Smog destroyed the dwellings of the men of Esgaroth, and I am yet the servants of their master. I would speak for him, as was whether you have no thought for the sorrow and the misery of his people. They aided you in your distress, and in recompense you have thus far brought ruin only, though doubtless undesigned. Now these were fair words and true, if proudly and grimly spoken, and people thought that Tolkien would at once admit what justice was in them. He did not, of course, expect that anyone would remember that it was he who discovered all by himself the dragon's weak spot, and it was just as well, for no one ever did. But also he did not reckon with the power that the god had upon which a dragon has long brooded, nor with dwarvish hearts. Long hours in the past days Tolkien had spent in the treasure, and the lust of it was heavy on him. Though he had hunted chiefly for the Arkenstone, yet he had an eye for many another wonderful thing that was lying there, about which were wound old memories of the labors and the sorrows of his race. You put your worst cause last and in the chief place, Tolkien answered. To the treasure of my people no man has a claim, because Mog stole it from us, also robbed him of life or home. The treasure was not his, that his evil deed should be amended with a share of it. The price of the goods and the assistance received of the Lakeman we will fairly pay in due time, but nothing will we give, not even a loaf's worth, under threat of force, while an armed host lies before our doors. We look on you as foes and thieves. It is in my mind to ask what share of this inheritance you would have paid to our kindred had you found the hoard unguarded and unslain. A just question, replied Barn, but you are not dead, and we are not robbers. Moreover, the wealthy may have pity beyond right on the needy that befriended them when they were in want, and still my other claims remain unanswered. I will not parley, as I said, with armed men at my gate, not at all with the people of the Elven King, who will remember with small kindness. In this debate they have no place. Begone now, your arrows fly, and if you'd speak with me again, first dismiss the elvish host to the woods where it belongs, and then return, laying down your arms before you approach the threshold. The Elven King is my friend, and he has succored the people of the lake in their need, though they had no claim but friendship on him, answered Barn. We will give you time to repent your words. Gather your wisdom ere we return. Then he departed and went back to the camp. Ere many hours were passed, the banner bearers returned, and trumpeters stood forth and blew a bass. In the name of Esgaroth and the forest, one cried, we speak unto throne trains. Oh, Jesus Christ. We speak unto train. Jesus Christ. We speak unto Thorin, Train's son, Oakenshield, calling himself king on the mountain. When they bid him reconsider, well, the claims that have been urged or be declared your foe. At the least, he shall deliver 1/12 portion of the treasure unto Bard, as the dragon's lair, and as the heir of Girion. From that portion, Bard will himself contribute to the aid of Esgaroth. But if Thorin would have the friendship and honor of the lands about, as his sires had of old, then he will also give somewhat of his own for the comfort of the men of the lake. Then Doris seized the bowl of horn and shot an arrow at the speaker. He smote unto his shield and stuck there quivering. Since such is your answer, he called in return, I declare the mountain besieged. You shall not depart from it until you call on your own side for a truce and a parley. We will bear no weapons against you, but we will leave you to your gold. You may eat at that if you will. With that, the messengers departed swiftly, and the dwarves were left to consider their case. So grim had Thorin become, that even if they had wished, the others would not have dared to find fault with him. But indeed, most of them seemed to share his mind, except for old fat Bomber and Philly and Bilbo, of course. Disapproved of the whole turn of affairs. He had by now had more than enough of the mountain, and being besieged inside it was not at all to his taste. The whole place. You stink the dragon, he grumbled to himself, and it makes me sick. And cram is beginning simply to stick in my throat. Chapter 16. A Thief in the Night. Now the days passed slowly and wearily. Many of the dwarves spent their time piling and hoarding the treasure, and now Thorin spoke of the Arcane Throne of Praying, and bade them eagerly to look for it in every corner. For the Arcane Stone of my father, he said, is worth more than a river of gold in itself, and to me it's beyond price. That stone of all the treasure I name unto myself, and I'll be avenged on anyone who finds it and withholds it. Bilbo heard these words and grew afraid, wondering what would happen if the stone was found wrapped in an old bundle of tattered oddments that he used as a pillow. All the same, he did not speak of it. As the weariness of the days grew heavier, the beginnings of a plan had come into his little head. Things had gone on like this for some time, and the ravens brought news that Dane and more than 500 dwarves, from the Iron Hills, were now within about 2 days' march of Dane, coming from the northeast. But they cannot reach the mountain no more, said Roag. And I fear lest there be battle in the valley. I do not count this council good. Though they are a grim foe, they are not likely to overcome the host that besets you. And if they did so, what would you gain? Winter is hastening upon them. How shall you be fed without the friendship and goodwill of the lands about you? The treasure is likely to be your debt, though the dragon is no more. But Thorin was not moved. Winter and snow will bite both men and elves, he said, and they may find their dwellings in the west grievous to bear. With my friends behind them and winter upon them, they'll perhaps be in softer mood to parley with. That night, Bilbo made up his mind. The sky was black and moonless. As soon as it was full dark, he went to a corner of an inner chamber, just within the gate, and drew from his bundle a rope, and also the Arcane Stone wrapped in a ring. Then he climbed to the top of the wall. Only Bilbo was there, for it was his turn to watch, and the dwarves kept only one watchman at a time. It is mighty cold, said Bumber. I wish we could have a fire up here, as they have in the camp. It is warm enough inside, said Bilbo. I dare say, but I'm bound here till midnight, grumbled the fat dwarf. A sorry business altogether. Not that I venture to disagree with Thorin. Bade his beard grow ever longer, and he was ever a dwarf with a stiff neck. Doggo! Can't you? Whoa. How are you doing? Not as stiff as my legs, said Bilbo. I'm tired of stairs and stone passages. I would give a good deal for the feel of grass at my toes. I would give a good deal for the feel of a strong drink in my throat, and for a soft bed after a good supper. I can give you those, while the siege is going on. But it's long since I watch, and I will take your turn. He's still talking, damn it. Thank you for the lure, Christy. And I love you, random lurker. Wink, wink. Anyway, he was still talking while the paragraph ended. I can give you those while the siege is going on. But it's long since I watch, and I'll take your tent for you if you like. There is no sleeping me tonight. You are a good fellow, Mr. Baggins, and I will take your offer kindly. If there should be anything to note, rouse me first, mind you. I will lie in the inner chamber to the left, not far away. You go, said Bilbo. I will wake you at midnight, then you can wake the next watchman. As soon as Bombur had gone, Bilbo put on his ring, fastened his rope, slipped down over the wall, and was gone. And about 5 hours before him, Bombur will sleep. He could sleep at any time ever since the adventure in the forest. He was always trying to recapture the beautiful dreams he had. And all the others were busy with Thorin. It was unlikely that any, even Philly or Killy, would come out on the wall until it was their turn. It was very dark, and the road after a while
When he left the newly made path and climbed down towards the lower course of the stream, was strange to him. Oh, awkward phrasing. At last, he came to the bend where he had to cross the water. If he was to make for the camp as he wished, the bed of the stream was there shallow, already broad, and fording into the dark was not easy for the little hobbit. He was nearly crossed when he missed his footing on a round stone and fell into the cold water with a splash. He had barely scrambled out on the far bank, shivering and spluttering, when up came elves in the gloom with bright lanterns and searched for the cause of the noise. There was no fish, one said. There is a spy about. Light your lights. He'll keep him more than us. If it is that queer little creature that is said to be their servant. Servant indeed, snorted Bilbo. In the middle of his snort, he sneezed loudly, and the elves immediately gathered towards the sound. Let's have a light, he said. I am here if you want me. And he slipped off his ring and popped from behind a rock. They seized him quickly, in spite of their surprise. Who are you? Are you the dwarves, Hobbit? What are you doing? How did you get so far past those sentinels? They asked one of them. I am Mr. Bilbo Baggins, he answered. Companion of Thorin, if you want to know. I know your king well by sight, though perhaps he doesn't know me to look at, but Bard will remember you. And it's Bard I particularly want to see. Indeed, said they. And what may be your business? Whatever it is, it's my own, my good elves. But if you wish ever to get back to your own woods from this cold, cheerless place, he answered, shivering, you will take me along quick to a fire where I can dry, and then you'll let me speak to your chiefs as quick as may be. I have only an hour or two to spare. That is how it came about that some 2 hours after he escaped from the gate, Bilbo was sitting beside a warm fire in front of the large tent, and there sat two, gazing curiously at him, both the Elven King and Bard. A hobbit, in elvish armor, partly wrapped in an old blanket, was something new to them. Really, you know, Bilbo was saying in his best business manner, things are impossible. Personally, I am tired of the whole affair. I wish I was back in the West, in my own home, where folk are more reasonable. But have an interest in this matter. 114 chair to be precise, according to a letter, which fortunately I believe I have kept. He drew from a pocket in his old jacket, which he still wore over his mail, crumpled and much folded. Thorin's letter that had been put under the cloak on his mantelpiece in May. Share in the profits, mind you, he went on. I am aware of that. Personally, I'm only too ready to consider all your claims carefully, and deduct what is right from the total before putting in my own claim. However, you don't know Thorin Oakenshield as well as do now. I assure you, he's quite ready to sit on a heap of gold and starve, as long as you sit here. Well, let them, said Bard. Such a fool deserves to starve. Quite so, said Bilbo. I see your point of view. At the same time, winter is coming on fast. Before long, you'll be having snow and whatnot, and supplies will be difficult. Even for elves, I imagine. Also, there will be other difficulties. You have not heard of Dane and dwarves of the Higher Hills? We have. A long time ago. But what has got to do with us? He asked the king. I thought as much. I see, I have some information you have not got. Dane, I may tell you, is now less than 2 days' march off, and has at least 500 green dwarves with him. A good many of them have had experience in the dreadful dwarf and goblin wars, of which you have no doubt heard. When they arrive, there may be serious trouble. Why do you tell us? Are you betraying your friends, or are you threatening us? Asked Bard grimly. My dear Bard, quick Bilbo, don't be so hasty. I never met such suspicious folk. I'm merely trying to avoid trouble for all concerned. Now I will make you an offer. Let us hear it, they said. You may see it, he said. It is this. And drew forth the Arkenstone and threw away the rock. The Elven King himself, whose eyes were used to things of wonder and beauty, stood up in amazement. Even Bard gazed marveling at it in silence. It was as if a globe had been filled with moonlight and hung before them, in a net woven of the glint of frosty stone. This is the Arkenstone of Train, said Bilbo, the heart of the mountain, and is also the heart of Thorin. He values it above a river of gold. I give it to you. It will aid you in your bargaining. Then Bilbo, not without a shudder, not without a glance of longing, handed the marvelous stone to Bard, and he held it in his hand as though danger. Well, how is it yours to give? He asked at last with an effort. Oh, well, said the Hobbit uncomfortably. It isn't exactly. But, well, I am willing to let it stand against all my claim, don't you know? I may be a burglar, or so they say. Personally, I never felt like one. But I am an honest one, I hope, more or less. Anyway, I am going back now, and dwarves can do what they like to me. I hope you find it useful. The Elven King looked at Bilbo with a new wonder. Bilbo Baggins, he said, you are more worthy to wear the armor of the Elf Princess than many that have looked calm, that have more comely in it. But I wonder if Thorin Oakenshield will see it so. I have more knowledge of dwarves in general than you have, perhaps. I advise you to remain with us, and here you shall honored and thrice welcome. Thank you very much, I am sure, said Bilbo with a bow. But I don't think I ought to leave my friends like this. After all we have gone through together. And I promise to wake old Bumble at midnight too. Really, I must be going, and quickly. Nothing they could say would stop him. So an escort was provided for him. And as he went, both the king and bard saluted him with honor. As they passed through the camp, an old man, wrapped in a dark cloak, rose from a tent door where he was sitting and came towards them. Well done, Mr. Baggins, he said, clapping Bilbo on the back. There is always more about you than anyone expects. He was Gandalf. For the first time for many a day, Bilbo was really delighted. But there was no time for all the questions that he immediately wished to ask. All in good time, said Gandalf. Things are drawing towards the end now, unless I am mistaken. There is an unpleasant time in front of you. But keep your hide up. You may come through all right. There is new brewing that even the ravens have not heard. Good night. Puzzled but cheered, Bilbo hurried on. He was guided to a safe ford and sat across the Rhine, and then he said farewells to the elves and climbed carefully back towards the gate. Great weariness began to come over him, but it was well before midnight when he clambered up the rope again. It was still where he had left it. He untied it and hid it. Then he sat down on the wall and wondered anxiously what would happen next. At midnight he woke up Bumber, and then in turn rolled himself up in his corner. Without listening to the old dwarf's thanks, he felt he had hardly earned. He was soon fast asleep, forgetting all his worries till morning. As a matter of fact, he was dreaming of eggs and bacon. Chapter 17. The clouds burst. But I need to make a quick break over here because I have some business. I have a little matter I need to do over here in home, so I'm just gonna do the ad break now, should I? Yeah, I'm just gonna run the ads now. I'm gonna call me in 14 minutes, but whatever. Now! I need to do it now! See you guys in like 3 minutes or so. a hat button. It is time to continue. Oh, wait, let me actually stretch a second. Oof. Yeah. Chapter 18. Wait, no, 17. Jesus Christ, I forgot completely how to read Roman numerals for a second. Chapter 17. The clouds burst. Next day, the trumpets rang early in the camp. Soon a single runner was seen hurrying along the narrow path. At a distance he stood and hailed them, asking whether Thorin would now listen to another embassy. His new tidings had come to hand, and matters were changed. "That'll be dang," said Thorin when he heard. "They'll have got wind of his coming, and I thought that would alter their mood. Bid them come few in number and weaponless, and I will hear them," he called to the master. About midday, the banners of the forest and the lake were seen to be borne forth again. A company of 20 was approaching. At the beginning of the narrow way, they laid aside sword and spear, and came on towards the gate. Wondering, the dwarves saw that among them were both Bard and the Elven King, before whom an old man wrapped in cloak and hood bore a strong casket of iron-bound wood. "Hey, O Thorin," said Bard, "are you still of the same mind?" "My mind does not change with the rising and setting of a few suns," answered Thorin. "Did you come to ask me idle questions? Still, the elf host has not departed as I bade. Till then you come in vain to bargain with me. Is there then nothing for which you would yield any of your gold? Nothing that you or your friends have to Bard offer? What of the Arkans? God damn it. Is there then nothing for which you do yield any of your gold? Nothing that you or your friends have to offer. What of then of the Arkenstone of Train?" said he, and at the same moment the old man opened the casket and held aloft the Jew. The light leapt from his hand, bright and white in the morning. Then Thorin was stricken dumb with amazement and confusion. No one spoke for a long while. Thorin at length broke the silence, and his voice was thick with wrath. "That stone was my father's, and it's mine. Why should I purchase my own?" But wonder overcame he, and he added, "Well, how came you by the heirloom of my house? If there's need to ask such a question of thieves." "We are not thieves," Bard answered. "Your own we will give back in return for our own." "How came you by it?" shouted Thorin in gathering rage. "I gave it to them," quipped Bilbo, who was peering over the wall, by now in a dreadful fright. You! Cried Thorin, turning upon him and grasping with both hands. "You miserable hobbit! You undersized burglar!" He shouted at a loss for words, and he shook poor Bilbo like a rabbit. "By the beard of Durin, I wish I had Gandalf here! Cursing him for his choice of you, may his beard wither! As for you, I will throw you to the rocks!" He cried and lifted Bilbo in his arm. "Stay, your wish is granted," said a voice. The old man with the casket threw aside his hood and cloak. "Here is Gandalf, and none too soon, it seems. If you don't like my bugler, please don't damage him. Put him down and listen first to what he has to say." You all seeming leak," said Thorin, dropping Bilbo on top of the wall. "Never again will I have dealings with any wizard or his friends. What have you to say, you descendants of rats?" Dear me, said Bilbo. "I am sure this is all very uncomfortable. You may remember saying that I might choose my own folding chair. Perhaps I took it too literally. I have been told that dwarves are sometimes politer in word than in deed. The time was all the same, when you seemed to think that I had been of some service. Descendants of rats indeed! Is this all the service of you and your family that was promised, Thorin? Take it that I have disposed of my share as I wish, and let it go at that." "I will," said Thorin grimly, "and I will let you go at that, and may we never meet again." Then he turned and spoke over the wall. "I am betrayed," he said,
It was rightly guessed that you could not forbear to redeem the arcane stone, the treasure of my house. For it I will give you 1/14 share of their hoard in silver and gold, setting aside the gems. But that shall be accounted the promised share of this traitor. And with that reward he shall depart, and you can divide it as you will. He will get little enough, I doubt not. Take him if you wish to live, and no friendship of mine goes with him. Get down now to your friends, he said, Bilbo, or I will throw you down. Oh, 1 second. Sorry, need another quick interruption here. Alright, I have returned once again, and I don't think there will be any more interruptions here now. Get down now to your friends, Thorin said to Bilbo, or I will throw you down. What about the gold and silver, asked Bilbo? That shall follow after. That shall follow after, and can be arranged, said he. Get down. And then, until then, we keep the stone, cried Barn. You're not making a very splendid figure as king under the mountain, said Gandalf. But things may change yet. They may indeed, said Thorin. And already so strong was the bewilderment of the treasure upon him. He was pondering whether by the help of Dane he might not recapture the anchor stone and withhold the share of the reward. And so Bilbo was sunk down from the wall, and departed with nothing for all his trouble, except the armor which Thorin had given him already. More than one of the dwarves in their hearts felt shame and pity at his going. Farewell, he cried to them. We may meet again as friends. Be off, called Thorin. You have mail upon you, which was made by my folk, and is too good for you. You cannot pierce by arrows, but if you do not hasten, I'll sting your miserable feet. So be swift. Not so hasty, said Bard. We will give you until tomorrow. At noon we will return and see if you have brought from the hoard a portion that is to be set against the stone. If that is done without deceit, then we will depart, and the elf host will go back to the forest. In the meanwhile, farewell! With that, they went back to the camp. But Thorin sent messengers by Roak, telling Dane of what had passed, and bidding him come with wary speed. That day passed and the night. Oh shit. That day passed and the night. The next day the wind shifted west, and the air was dark and gloomy. The morning was too early when a cry was heard in the camp. Runners came in to report that a host of dwarves had appeared round in the eastern spur of the mountain, and was now hastening to Dane. Dane had come. He had hurried on through the night, and so had come upon them sooner than they had expected. Each one of his folk was clad in a hauberk of steel mail that hung to his knees, and his legs were covered with a hose of a fine and flexible metal mesh, the secret of whose making was possessed by Dane's people. The dwarves are exceedingly strong for their height, but most of these were strong even for dwarves. In battle, they wielded heavy, two-handed mattocks. What's a mattock? What is a mattock? Is that like a pickaxe? Sort of pickaxe. But each of them had also a short broadsword at his side and a round shield slung at his back. Their beards were forked and plated and thrust into their belts. Their caps were of iron, and they were shod with iron, and their faces were green. Trumpets called men and elves to arm. Before long, the dwarfs could be seen coming up the valley at a great pace. They halted between the river and the eastern spur, but a few held on their way, and crossing the river drew near the camp. And there they laid down their weapons and held up their hands in sign of peace. Bard went out to meet them, and with him went Bilbo. "We are sent from Dane, son of Nain," they said when questioned. "We are hastening to our kinsmen in the mountain, since we learned that the kingdom of Old is renewed. But who are you that sit in the plain as foes before defended walls?" This, of course, in the polite and rather old-fashioned language of such occasions, meant simply, "You have no business here. We are going on, so make way or we shall fight you." They meant to push on between the mountain and the loop of the river, but the narrow land there did not seem to be strongly guarded. Bard, of course, refused to allow the dwarfs to go straight on to the mountain. He was determined to wait until the gold and silver had been brought out in exchange for the Arkenstone. Well, he did not believe that this would be done. If once the fortress was manned with so large and warlike company, they had brought with them a great store of supplies, for the dwarves can carry very heavy burdens, and nearly all of Dane's folk, fine to their rapid march, bore huge packs on their backs in addition to their weapons. They would stand a siege for weeks, and by that time yet more dwarves might come, and yet more, for Thorin had many relatives. Also, they would be able to reopen and guard some of the other gates, so that the besiegers would have to encircle the whole mountain, and for that they had not sufficient numbers. These were, in fact, precisely their plan, for the raving messengers had been busy between Thorin and Dane. But for the moment the way was barred, so after angry words the dwarf messengers retired, muttering in their beards. Bard then sent messengers at once to the gate, but they found no gold or payment. Arrows came forth as soon as they were within shot, and they hastened back in dismay. And the camp was now austere, as if for battle. But the dwarves of Dane were advancing along the eastern bank. "Fools," laughed Bard, "to come to us beneath the mountain's arms. They do not understand war above ground, whether they may know of battle in the mines. There are many of our watchers and spearmen now, hidden in the rocks upon their right flank. Dwarf mail may be good, but they will soon be hard put to it. Let us set on them now from both sides before they are fully rested." But the Elven King said, "Long will I tire ere I begin thus war forgo. The dwarves cannot pass us unless we will, or do anything that we cannot mark. Let us hope still for something that will bring reconciliation. What advantage in numbers will be enough, if in the end he must come to unhappy blows." But he reckoned without the dwarves. The knowledge that the Arkenstone was in the hands of the besiegers burned in their thoughts. Also they guessed the hesitation of Bard and his friends and resolved to strike while they debated. Suddenly, without a signal, they sprang silently forward to attack. Bows twanged and arrows whistled. Battle was about to be joined. Still more suddenly, a darkness came on with a dreadful whistleness. A black cloud hurried over the sky. Winter thunder on a wild wind roaring up and rumbling the mountain, and lightning lit its peak. And beneath the thunder, another blackness could be seen rolling forward. But it did not come with the wind. It came from the north, like a vast cloud of birds, so dense that no light could be seen between their names. "Halt!" cried Gandalf, who appeared suddenly stood alone with arms uplifted, between the advancing dwarves and the ranks awaiting them. "Halt!" he called in a voice like thunder, and his staff blazed forth with a flash like lightning. "Dread has come upon you all! Alas, it has come more swiftly than I had guessed. The goblins are upon you. Bog of the North is coming. O Dane, whose father used Lewd in Moria. Behold! The bats are above his army like a sea of black locusts. They ride upon wolves, and wargs are in their train." Amazement and confusion fell upon them all. Even as Gandalf had been speaking, the darkness grew. The dwarves halted and gazed at the sky. The dwarves cried out, many voices. "Come!" called Gandalf. "There is yet time for council. Let Dane, son of Nain, come swiftly to us." So began a battle that none had expected, and it was called the Battle of Five Armies, and it was very terrible. Upon one side were the goblins and the white wolves, and upon the other were elves and men and dwarves. This is how it all fell out. Ever since the fall of the great goblin of the Misty Mountains, the hatred of their race for the dwarves had been kindled to fury. Messengers had passed to and fro between all their cities, colonies, and strongholds, but they resolved now to win the dominion of the North. Tidings they had gathered in secret ways, and in all the mountains there was a forging and an arming. Then they marched and gathered by hill and valley, going over by tunnel or under dark, until round and beneath the great mountain Gundabad of the North, where was their capital, a vast host was assembled, ready to sweep down in time of storm unawares upon the south. Then they learned of the death of Smaug, and joy was in their hearts, and they hastened night after night through the mountains, and came thus at last on a sudden from the north, hard on the heels of the Dane. Not even the ravens knew of their coming until they came out into the broken lands, which divided the lonely mountain from the hills behind. How much Gandalf knew cannot be said, but it's plain that he had not expected this sudden assault. This is the plan that he made in council with the Elven King and with Bard, and with Dane, for the Dwarf Lord now joined them. The goblins were the foes of all, and at their coming all other quarrels were forgotten. Their only hope was to lure the goblins into the valley between the arms of the mountain, and themselves to man the great spurs that struck south and east. Yet this would be perilous if the goblins were in sufficient numbers to overrun the mountain itself, and so attack them also from behind and above. But there was no time to make another plan, or to summon any help. Soon the thunder passed, rolling away to the southeast, but the bat cloud came, flying lower, over the shoulder of the mountain, and whirled about them, shutting out the light and filling them with dread. "To the mountain," called Bard. "To the mountain! Let us take our places while there is yet time." On the southern spur, its lower slopes, and in the rocks at his feet, the elves were set. On the eastern spur were men and dwarves, but Bard and some of the nimblest of men and elves climbed to the height of the eastern shoulder, taking a view to the north. Soon they could see the lands before the mountain's feet, back with a hurrying multitude. Ere long, the vanguard swirled around the spur's end and came rushing to them. These were the swiftest wolf riders, and already their cries and howls rent the air afar. A few brave men were strung before them to make a feint of resistance, and many there fell before the rest drew back and fled to either side. As Gandalf had hoped, the goblin army had gathered behind the resisted vanguard, and poured now in rage into the valley, driving wildly up between the arms of the mountain, seeking for the foe. Their banners were countless, black and red, and they came on like a tide in fury and disorder. It was a terrible battle, the most dreadful of all of Bilbo's experience, and the one which at time he hated the most. Which is to say, was one he was most proud of and most fond of recalling long afterwards, although he was quite unimportant in it. Actually, I may say he put on his ring early in the business, vanished from sight if not from all danger. A magic ring of that sort is not a complete protection in a goblin charge, nor does it stop flying arrows and wild spear, but it does in helping getting out of the way, and it prevents your head from being specially chosen for a sweeping stroke by a goblin swordsman. The elves were first to charge. Their hatred for the goblins is cold and bitter. Their spears and swords shone in the gloom with a gleam of shield flame. So deadly was the wrath of the hands that held them. As soon as their host of their enemies was dense in the valley, they sent against it a shower of arrows, and each flickered as it fled as if with stinging fire. Behind the arrows, 1,000 of the spearmen leapt down and charged. The yells were deafening. The rocks were stained black with goblin blood. Just as the goblins were recovering from the onslaught and the elf charge was halted, there rose from across the valley a deep-throated roar, with cries of Moria and Dane, Dane! The dwarves of the Iron Hills plunging, wielding their mattocks upon the other side, and beside them came the men of the lake with long swords. Panic came upon the goblins, and even as they turned to meet this new attack, the elves charged again with renewed numbers. Already many of the goblins were flying back down the river to escape from the trap, and many of their own wolves were turning upon them and ending the dead and the wounded. Victory seemed at hand, when a cry rang out on the heights above. Goblins had scaled the mountain from the other side and already many were on the slope above the gate, and others were streaming down recklessly, heedless of those that fell screaming from cliff and precipice, to attack the spurs from above. Each of these could be reached by paths that ran down from the main mass of the mountain in the center, and the defenders had too few to bar the way for long. Victory now vanished from hope. They had only stemmed the first onslaught of the black tide. They drew on, the goblins gathering again in the valley. There a host of wargs came ravening within, and with them came the bodyguard of Bog, goblins of huge size with scimitars of steel. Soon a chill darkness was coming to a stormy sky, while still the great bats whirled about the heads and ears of elves and men, or fastened vampire-like on the stricken. Now Bard was fighting to defend the eastern spur, and yet giving slowly back, and the elf lords were in a bay about their king upon the southern arm, near to the watch post on Raven Hill. Suddenly, there was a great shout, and from the gate came a trumpet call. They had forgotten Thorin. Part of the wall, moved by livers, fell outward with a crash into the pool. Out leapt the king under the mountain, and his companions followed him. Hood and cloak were gone. They were in shining armor, and red light leapt from their eyes. In the gloom, the great dwarf gleamed like gold in a dying fire. Rocks were hurled down from on high by the goblins above, but they held on, leapt down to the false foot, and rushed forward to battle. Wolf and rider fell or fled before them. Thorin wielded his axe with mighty strokes, and nothing seemed to harm him. To me, elvens and men! To me, oh my kinsfolk! He cried, and his voice shook like a horn in the valley. Down, heedless of order, rushed all the dwarves of Dane to his help. Down too came many of the lake men, for Bard could not restrain them. And out upon the other side came many of the spearmen duels. Once again the odd goblins were stricken in the valley, and they were piled in heaps till Dale was dark and hideous with their corpses. The wargs were scattered, and Thorin drove right against the bodyguard of Bog, but he could not pierce their ranks. Already behind him among the goblin dead lay many men and many dwarves, and many a far elf that should have lived yet long ages merrily in the wind. And as the valley widened, his onset grew ever slower. His numbers were too few, his flanks were unguarded. Soon the attackers were attacked, and they were forced into a great ring, facing every way, hemmed all about with goblins and wolves returning to the assault. The bodyguards of Bog came howling against them, and drove in upon their ranks like waves upon cliffs of sand. Their friends could not help them, for the assault from the mountain was renewed with redoubled force, and upon either side men and elves were being slowly beaten down. On all this, Bilbo looked with misery. He had taken his stand on Raven Hill among the elves, partly because there was more chance to escape from that point, and partly with a more Tookish part of his mind, because if he was going to be in a last desperate stand, he preferred on the whole to defend the Elven King. Gandalf, too, I may say, was there, sitting on the ground as if in deep thought, preparing, I suppose, some last blast of magic before the end. That did not seem far off. You do not belong now, thought Bilbo, before the goblins went the gate, and we are all slaughtered and driven down and captured. Really, it is enough to make one weep, after all one has gone through. I would rather old Smaug had been left without their wretched treasure, than that these vile creatures should get it. And poor old Bumble, and Bali, and Philly, and Kikili, and the rest come to a bad end. And Bar, too, and the Lake Man, and the Merry Elves. Misery me! I've heard songs of many battles, and I've always understood that defeat may be glorious. It seems very unfortunate. No, it seems very uncomfortable, not to say distressing. I wish I was well out of it. The clouds were torn by the wind, and a red sunset lashed the west. Seeing the sudden gleam in the gloom, Bilbo looked around. He gave a great cry. He had seen a sight that made his heart leap. Dark shape, small yet majestic against the distant glow. The eagles! The eagles! He shouted. The eagles are coming! Bilbo's eyes were seldom wrong. The eagles were coming down the wind, line after line, in such a host as must have gathered from all the eyries of the north. The eagles! The eagles! Bilbo cried, dancing and waving his arms. If the elves could not see him, they could hear him. Soon they too took up the cry, and it echoed across the valley. Many wondering eyes looked up, though as yet nothing could be seen except from the southern and shoulders of the mountain. The eagles! Bilbo cried once more. But at the moment a stone hurtling from above smote heavily on his helm, and he fell with a crash and knew no more. The eagles! He cried. Again, the eagles come to save everyone, Jesus. What Deus Ex Machina, huh? What Deus Ex Machina? Chapter 18, The Return Journey. When Bilbo came to himself, he was literally by himself. He was lying on the flat stones of Raven Hill, and no one was near. A cloudless day, but cold was broad above him. He was shaking, and a shoe was stone, but his head burned with fire. Now I wonder what has happened, he said to himself. At any rate, I'm not yet one of the fallen heroes, but I suppose there is still time enough for that. He sat up painfully. Looking into the valley, he could see no living goblins. After a while, as his head cleared a little, he thought he could see elves moving the rocks below. He rubbed his eyes. Surely there was a camp still in the plains some distance off, and there was a coming and going about the gate. Dwarves seemed to be busy removing the wall, for all was deadly still. There was no call and no echo of a song. Sorrow seemed to be in the air. Victor after all, I suppose, he said, feeling his aching head. Well, it seems a very gloomy business. Suddenly he was aware of a man climbing up, coming towards him. Hello there, he called with a shake gloom. Hello there, what news? What voice is it that speaks among the stones? Said the man, halting and peering about them, not far from where Bilbo sat. Then Bilbo remembered his ring. Well, I'm blessed, said he. The ability has its drawbacks after all. Otherwise, I suppose I might have spent a warm and comfortable night in bed. It is me, Bilbo Baggins, companion of Thorin, he cried, hurriedly taking off the ring. It is well that I have found you, said the man striding forward. You are needed, and you have looked for you long. You'd have been numbered among the dead, who are many, if Gandalf the wizard had not said that your voice was last heard in this place. I have been sent to look here for the last time. Are you much hurt? And I see a knock on the head, I think, said Bilbo. But I have a helm and a hard skull. All the same, I feel sick and my legs are like straw. I will carry you down the camp in the valley, said the man, and pick him lightly up. The man was swift and sure-footed. It was not long before Bilbo was sat down before a tenting dale. And there stood Gandalf, with his arm in a sling. Even the wizard has not escaped without the worm. And there were few unharmed in all the host. When Gandalf saw Bilbo, he was alive. Baggins! He exclaimed. Well, I never. Alive after all, I am glad. I began to wonder if even your luck would see you through. Oh, terrible business. And it nearly was disastrous. What the news can wait. Come, he said more gravely. You are called for. And the lady Hobbit he took within the tent. Hey, old Thorin, he said as he entered. I have brought him. There indeed lay Thorin, walking shield, wounded with many wounds, and his rent armor and notched axe were cast upon the floor. He looked up as Bilbo came beside him. Farewell, good thief, he said. I go now to the house of waiting to sit beside my father, until the world is renewed. Since I live now, all gold and silver, and go where it is of little worth. I wish to part in friendship from you, while I will take back my words and deeds at the gate. Bilbo knelt on one knee filled with sorrow. Farewell, King on the mountain. This is a bitter adventure, if I must say so, and not a mountain of gold can amend it. Yet I am glad that I have shared in your perils. It has been more than any Baggins deserve. No, said Thorin. There is more in you of good than you know it. Childhood of kindly west. Some courage and some wisdom, blended in measure. If more of us valued food and cheer and song above hoarded gold, it would be a merrier world. But sad or merry, I must live it now. Farewell! Then Bilbo turned away and went by himself, and sat alone in a blanket. Whether you believe it or not, he wept until his eyes were red and his voice was hoarse. He was a kindly little soul. Indeed, it was long before he had the heart to make a joke again. I must say this, he said at last to himself, that I woke up when I did. I wish Tori were living. I am glad that we parted in kindness. You were a fool, Bilbo Baggins. You made a great mess of that business with the stone. And there was a battle, in spite of all your efforts to buy peace and quiet. But I suppose you can't hardly be blamed for that. No. All that happened after he was stunned, Bilbo learned later. But it gave him more sorrow than joy, and he was now weary of his adventure. He was aching in his bones for the homeward journey. That, however, was a little delayed, but in the meantime I will tell you of events. The eagles had long had suspicion of the goblins mustering. From their watchfulness, the movements in the mountains could not be altogether hid. So they too had gathered in great numbers unto the great eagle of the misty mountains. And at length, smelling battle from afar, they had come speeding down the gale in the nick of time. They it was who dislodged the goblins from the mountains below, casting them over the precipices, or driving them down shrieking and bewildered among their foes. It was not long before they had freed the lonely mountain, and elves and men on either side of the valley could come at last to the help of the battle below. But even with the eagles, they were still outnumbered. In the last hour, Bjorn himself had appeared. No one knew how or from where. He came alone and in bare shape, and he seemed to have grown almost to giant size in his wrath. The roar of his voice was like drums and guns, and he tossed wolves and goblins from his path like straws and feathers. He fell upon their rear and broke like a clap of thunder through the ring, the dwarves making a standstill about their lords upon a low rounded hill. Then Bjorn stooped and left Thorin, had fallen pierced with spears, and bore him out of the fray. Swiftly he returned, and his wrath was redoubled, so that nothing would stand him, and no weapon seemed to bite upon him. He scattered the bodyguard, and pulled out Bog himself and crushed him. Then dismay fell on the goblins, and they fled in all directions. Weariness left their enemies with the coming of a new hope, and they pursued them closely, and prevented most of them from escaping where they could. They drove many of them into the running river, and such as fled south or west they hunted into the marshes about the forest river, and there the greater part of the last fugitives perished. While those that came hardly to the wood elves' realm were there slain, or drawn in to die deep in the trackless dark of murk. Songs have said that 3 parts of the goblin warriors of the north perished on that day, and the mountains had peace for many a year. Victor had been ashore before the fall of night, but the pursuit was still on foot when Bilbo returned to the camp, and not many were in the valley save the more grievously wounded. "Where are the eagles?" he asked Gandalf that evening, as he lay wrapped in many warm blankets. "Some are in the hunt," said the wizard, "but most have gone back to the Iris. They will not stay here at the path with the first light of morning. Dane has crowned their chief with gold and sworn friendship with them forever." "I am sorry. I should have liked to see them again," said Bilbo sleepily. "Perhaps I shall see them on the way home. I suppose I should be going home soon." "As soon as you like," said the wizard. Yeah, actually it was some days before Bilbo really set out. They buried Thorin deep beneath the mountain, and Bard laid the Arkenstone upon his breast. "There lay lie to the mountain's fall, and may it bring good fortune to all his folk that dwell hereafter." Upon his tomb would the Elven King then lay Orcrist, the elvish sword that had been taken from Thorin captivity. It is said in songs that they gleam ever in the dark if foes approach, and the fortress of the dwarves could not be taken by surprise. There now Dane, son of Dane, took up his abode, and he became king under the mountain. And in time many other dwarves gathered to his throne in the ancient halls. Of the 12 companions of Thorin, 10 remain. Fili and Killing had fallen, defending him with shield and body, for he was their mother's elder brother. The others remained with Dane, for Dane dealt his treasure well. There was, of course, no longer any question of dividing the hoard in such shares as had been planned. To Balin and Dwalin, to Thorin and Norin, and Norin and Oin and Gloin, and Bilfur and Bofur and Bombur, and to Bilbo. Yet the 14th share of all the silver and gold, wrought and unwrought, was given to Bard, for Dane said, "We will honor the agreement of the dead, and he has now the Arkenstone in his keeping." Even a 14th share was wealth exceedingly great, greater than that of many mortal kings. On that treasure Bard sent much gold to the master of Lake Town, and he rewarded his followers and friends freely. To the Elven King he gave the emeralds of Girion, such jewels as his most loved, which Dane had restored to him. To Bilbo he said, "This treasure is as much yours as it is mine. So though the agreements cannot stand, since so many have acclaimed its winning and defense, yet even though you are willing to lay aside all your claim, I should wish that the woes of Thorin, of which he repented, do not prove true, that we should give you little. I would reward you most richly of all." "Very kind of you," said Bilbo, "but really it is a relief to me. How on earth should I have got all that treasure home without war and murder all along the way? I don't know. And I don't know what I should have done with it when I got home. I'm sure it is better in your hand." In the end, you only take 2 small chests, one filled with silver and the other with gold, such as one strong pony could carry. "That would be quite as much as I can manage," said he. Alas, the time came for him to say goodbye to his friend. "Farewell, Balin," he said, "and farewell, Dwalin, and farewell, Thorin, Ori, Oin, Gloin, Bilfur, Bofur, and Bombur. May your beards never grow thin." And turning towards the mountain, he added, "Farewell, Thorin, Oakenshield, and Fili and Killing. May your memory never fade." Then the dwarves bowed low before their gate, but words stuck in their throats. "Goodbye and good luck wherever you fare," said Balin at last. "If ever you visit us again, our house are made fair once more, and the feast shall indeed be splendid." "If ever you are passing my way," said Bilbo, "don't wait to knock. Please at 4, but any of you are welcome at any time." Then he turned away. Oh God. Got my eyes all watery here. The elf host was on the march, and it was sadly lessened. Yet many were glad, for now the northern world would be merry for many a long day. The dragon was dead, where the goblins overthrown, and their hearts look forward after winter to a spring of joy. Gandalf and Bilbo rode behind the Elven King, and beside them strolled Bjorn, once again in man's shape, and he laughed and sang in a loud voice upon the road. So they went on until they drew near to the borders of Mirkwood, to the north of the place where the forest river ran out. And they halted, for the wizard and Bilbo would not enter the wood, even though the king bade them stay a while in his hall. They intended to go along the edge of the forest and round its northern ending, the waste that lay between it and the beginning of the Grey Mountains. It was a long and cheerless road, but now that the goblins were crushed, it seemed safer to them than the dreadful pathways under the trees. Moreover, Bjorn was going that way too. "Farewell, O Elven King," said Gandalf. "Merry be the green wood, while the wood is yet young, and merry be all your folk." "Farewell, O Gandalf," said the king. "May you ever appear where you're most needed and least expected. The oftener you appear in my halls, the better shall I be pleased." "I beg of you," said Bilbo, stammering and standing on one foot, "to accept this gift." And he brought out a necklace of silver and pearls that Dane had given him in their party. "In what way have I earned such a gift, O Hobbit?" said the king. "Well, I thought you... Don't you know," said Bilbo, rather confused, "that some little return should be made for your hospitality? I mean, a bugler has his feelings. I've drank much of your wine and eaten much of your blood." "I will take your gift, O Bilbo the Magnificent," said the king gravely, "and I name you elf friend and blessed. May your shadow never grow less, or stealing would be too easy. Farewell." And the elves turned to their forests, and Bilbo started on his long road home. He had many hardships and adventures before he got back. And the wild was still the wild, and there were many other things in it those days beside goblins. But he was well guided and well guarded. The wizard was with him, and Bjorn for much of the way, and he was never in great danger again. Anyway, by midwinter, Gandalf and Bilbo had come all the way back, along both edges of the forest, to the doors of Bjorn's house, and there for a while they both stayed. Yuletide was warm and merry there, and men came from far and wide to feast at Bjorn's bidding. The goblins of the Misty Mountains were now fear and terrified, and hidden in the deepest holes they could find, and the wargs had vanished from the woods, so that men went abroad without fear. Bjorn indeed became a great chief afterwards in those regions, and ruled a wide land between the mountains and the wood. And it's said that for many generations the men of his line had the power of taking various shape. And some were green men and bad, but most were ink hard like Bjorn, if less in size than strength. In their day, the last goblins were hunted from the Misty Mountains, and a new peace came over to the edge of the wild. It was spring, and a fair one with mild weathers and a bright sun. For Bilbo and Gandalf took their leave at last of Bjorn, and though he longed for home, Bilbo left with regret, for the flowers of the gardens of Bjorn were in springtime no less marvelous than in high summer. Alas, they came up the long road and reached the very pass where the goblins had captured them before. But they came to the high point at morning, and looking backward they saw a white sun shining over the outstretched land. There behind lay Mirkwood, blue in the distance, and darkly green at the near edge even in the spring. There far away was the lonely mountain on the edge of Eyeside. On its highest peak snow yet unmelted was gleaming pale. So comes snow after fire, and even dragons have their ending, said Bilbo, and he returned his back on this adventure. The Tookish part was getting very tired, and the Baggins was daily getting stronger. I wish now only to be in my own armchair, he said. Chapter 19, the last stage. How many pages do we have? Not a lot. Not a lot. Chapter 19, The Last Day. It was on May the 1st that the two came back at last to the brink of the valley of Rivendell, where stood the last or the first homely house. Again it was evening. Their ponies were tired, especially the one that carried the baggage, and they all felt in need of rest. As they rode down the steep path, Bilbo heard the elves still singing in the trees, as if they had not stopped since he left. And as soon as the riders came down into the lower glades of the wood, they burst into a song of much the same kind as before. Is this something you like? The dragon is withered, his bones are now crumbled, his armor is shivered, his splendor is humbled. Those swords shall be rusted, and throne and crown perish, with strength that men trusted, and wealth that they cherish. Here grass is still growing, and leaves are still swinging. The water flowing, the white water flowing, and elves are yet singing. From the la-la-la-lee, come back to the valley. The stars are far brighter than gems without measure. The moon is far whiter than silver in treasure. The fire is more shining on heart in the gloaming. Oh God! The fire is more shiny on heart in the gloaming. Then go on by mining, so why go roaming? Oh, the la-la-la-lee, come back to the valley. Oh, where are you going, so late in returning? The river is flowing, the stars are all burning. Oh, with a soul landing, so sad and so dreary. Here elf and elf maiden, now come, now welcome the weary. We tra-la-la-la-lee, come back to the valley. Tra-la-la-la-lee, fa-la-la-la-la-lee, fa-la. Okay. Then the elves of the valley came out and greeted them, and led them across the water to the house of Elrond. There a warm welcome was made them, and there were many eager ears that evening to hear the tale of their adventures. Gandalf it was who spoke, but Bilbo was falling quiet and drowsy. Most of the tale he knew, for he had been in it, and he had himself told too much of it to the wizard on their homeward way or in the house of Bjorn. But every now and again he would open one eye and listen, when a part of the story which he did not yet know came in. It was in those ways that he learned where Gandalf had been to. For he overheard the words of the wizard to Elrond. It appeared that Gandalf had been to a great council of the White Wizards, masters of lore and good magic, and that they had at least driven the necromancer from his dark hold in the south of Mirkwood. Ere long now, Gandalf was saying, the forest will grow somewhat more wholesome. The north will be freed from that horror for many long years, I hope. Yet I wish you were banished from the world. It would be well indeed, said Elrond, but I fear that will not come about in this age of the world, or for many after. When the tales of their journeys was told, there were other tales, and yet more tales. Tales of long ago, and tales of new things, and tales of no time at all. Till Bilbo's head fell forward on his chest, and he snored comfortably in a corner. He woke to find himself in a white bed, and the moon shining through an open window. Below it, many elves were singing loud and clear on the banks of the stream. This is another one. Sing out, ye joyful, now sing out together. The sing winds in the treetop, the winds in the heather. The stars are in blossom, the moon is in flower, and bright are the windows of Nightingale Tower. Dance out, ye joyful, now dance out together. Soft is the grass, and let foot be like feather. River is silver, the shadows are fleeting. Merry is Maytime, and merry our meeting. Sing we now softly, and dreams allows with him. Wean him in slumber, and there let us leave him. The wanderer is lifted. Now soft be his pillows. Lullaby, lullaby, water and willow. Sigh no more pine, till the wind of the moon. Full moon, dark be the land. Hush, hush, oak, Washington. Hush, be all water. You don't, it's a hand. Okay, I sang this last part horribly, but whatever. I don't know. Get that shit. I don't know how to sing this. Well, merry people, said Bilbo, looking out. What time but the moon is this? Your lullaby would waken a drunken goblin, yet I thank you. And your snores would waken a stone dragon, yet we thank you. The 700 songs of the Hobbit. There are quite a lot of these. They answered with laughter. It is drawing towards dawn, and you have slept now since the night's beginning. Tomorrow perhaps you'll be cured of weariness. A little sleep does a great cure in the house of Aaron, said he. Well, I'll take all the cure I can get. A second good night, fair friends. And with that he went back to bed and slept till late morning. Weariness fell from him soon in that house, and he had many a merry jest and dance, early and late, with the owls of the valley. Yet even that place could not long delay him now, and he thought always of his own home. After a week, therefore, he said farewell to Aaron, and giving him such small gifts as he would accept, he rode away with Gandalf. Even as they left the valley, the sky darkened in the west above them, and wind and rain came up to meet them. Merry, it is May time, said Bilbo, as the rain began beating to his face. But our back is to legends, and we are coming home. I suppose this is the first taste of it. There is a long road yet, said Bilbo. But it is the last road, said Gandalf. But it is the last road, said Bilbo. They came to the river that marked the very edge of the borderland of the wild, and to the ford beneath the steep bank, which you may remember. The water was swelling both with the melting of the snows and the approach of summer, and with the day-long rain. But they crossed with some difficulty and pressed forward, as evening fell on the last stage of their journey. This was much as it had been before, except that the company was smaller and more silently. Also this time there were no trolls. At each point on the road, Bilbo recalled the happenings and the words of a year ago. It seemed to him more like then, so that, of course, quickly noted the place where the pony had fallen in the river, and they had turned aside for the nasty adventure with Tom and Bert and Bill. Not far from the road they found the gold of the trowels, which they had buried, still hidden and untouched. I have enough to last me my time, said Bilbo, and they had dug it up. You'd better take this, Gandalf. I dare say you can find a use for it. Indeed I can, said the wizard. We share and share alike. You may find you have more needs than you expect. So they put the golds in bags and slung them on the ponies, who were not at all pleased about it. After that, the going was slower, for most of the time they walked. The land was green and there was much grass, through which the hobbit strolled along contentedly. He mopped his face with a red silk handkerchief. No, not a single one of his own had survived. He had borrowed this one from Aaron. For now, June had brought summer, and the weather was bright and hot again. As all things come to an end, even this story, a day came at last when they were in sight of the country where Bilbo had been born and bred, where the shapes of the land and of the trees were as well known to him as his hands and toes. Coming to a rise, he could see his own hill in the distance, and he stopped and suddenly said, Roads go ever on, over rock and under trees, by caves where never sun has shone, by stream that never find the sea, over snow by winter's sun, and through the merry flowers of June, over grass and over stone, and under mountains in the moon. Roads go ever on the cloud and on the star, yet feet that wander in heaven gone turn at last to home afar. Ice the fire and swords have seen, and horror in the house of stone. Look at last on meadows green, and trees and hills they long have known. Gandalf looked at him. My dear Bilbo, he said, something's the matter with you. You're not the hobbit that you were. And so they crossed the bridge, and passed the mill by the river, and came back to Bilbo's own door. That's me. What's going on? He cried. There was a great commotion, and people of all sorts, respectable and more respectable, were thick around the door, and many were going in and out, not even wiping their feet on the mat, as Bilbo noticed with annoyance. He was surprised they were more surprised still. He had arrived back in the middle of an auction. There was a large notice in black and red hung on the gate, stating that on June the 22nd, Messrs. Grubb and Borowis would sell by auction the effects of late Bilbo Baggins, Esquire of Bag End, Underhill, Hobbiton. The stage commenced at 10 o'clock sharp. It was now nearly lunchtime, and most of the things had already been sold, for various prices from the next to nothing to old songs, as is not unusual on auctions. Bilbo's cousins, the Sackville Bagginses, were, in fact, busy measuring his rooms to see if their own furniture would fit. In short, Bilbo was presumed dead, and not everybody that said so was sorry to find the presumption wrong. The return of Mr. Bilbo Baggins created quite a disturbance, both under the hill and over the hill and across the water. It was a great deal more than a 9 days' wonder. The legal bother, indeed, lasted for years. It was quite a long time before Mr. Baggins was in fact admitted to be alive again. The people who had got specially good bargains at the sale took a deal of convincing, and in the end, to save time, Bilbo had to buy back quite a lot of his own furniture. Many of his silver spoons mysteriously disappeared and were never accounted for. Personally, he suspected the Sackville Bagginses. On their side, they never admitted that the return Baggins was genuine, and they were not on friendly terms with Bilbo ever after. They really had wanted to live in his nice Hobbit hole so very much. Indeed, Bilbo had lost more than spoons. He had lost his reputation. It is true that forever after he remained an elf friend, and had the honor of dwarves, wizards, and all such folk as ever passed that way. But he was no longer quite respectable. He was in fact held by all the hobbits of the neighborhood to be queer. Nice going, okay. Except by his nephews and nieces on the Took side. But even they were not encouraging their friendship by their elder. I'm sorry to say he did not mind. He was quite content, and the sound of the captain on his heart was ever after more musical than it had been even the quiet days before the unexpected party. His sword he hung over the mantelpiece. His coat of mail was arranged on a stand in the hall until he laid it to a museum. His gold and silver was largely spent in presents, both useful and servant, which to a certain extent accounts for the affection of his nephews and his nieces. His magic ring he kept a great secret, for he chiefly used it when unpleasant callers came. He took to writing poetry and visiting the elves, and though many shook their heads and touched their foreheads and said, "Poor old Baggins," and though few believed any of his tales, he remained very happy to the end of his days, and those were extraordinarily long. One autumn evening, some years afterwards, Bilbo was sitting in his study, writing his memoirs. He thought of calling them There and Back Again, a Hobbit's Holiday. And there was a ring at the door. It was Gandalf and a dwarf, and the dwarf was actually bowing. Come in, said Bilbo, and soon they were settling chairs by the fire. The Balin noticed that Mr. Baggins' waistcoat was more extensive, and had real gold buttons. Bilbo also noticed that Balin's beard was several inches longer, and his jewel belt was of great magnificence. They fell to talking of their time together, of course. Bilbo asked how things were going in the lanes of the mountain. It seemed they were going very well. Bard had rebuilt the Tolkien Dale, and men had gathered to him from the lake and from the south and west. And now the valley had become tilled again and rich, and the desolation was now filled with birds and blossoms in spring and fruit and feasting in autumn. And the lake town was refounded and was more prosperous than ever. And much wealth went up and down the running river, and there was friendship in those parts between elves and dwarves and men. Why is it this like sideways? The Hall a Bag End resident of Baggins Esquire. This looks really small, honestly, compared to the size of the rest of his home. But it's quite a neat little home. The old master had come to a bad end. Bard had given me much gold for the help of the lake people, but being of the kind that easily catches such disease, he fell under the dragon sickness, and took most of the gold and fled with it, and died of starvation in the waste, deserted by his companions. The new masters of wiser kind, said Bonnie. And very popular. But of course, he got most of the credit for the present prosperity. They're making songs which say that in his day the rivers run with gold. And the prophecies of the old songs have turned out to be true of their fashion, said Bilbo. Of course, said Gandalf. But why shouldn't they prove true? Surely you don't disbelieve the prophecies? Because you had a hand in bringing them about yourself? You don't really suppose, do you, that all your adventures and escapes were managed by mere luck? Just for your sole benefit? You are a very fine person, Mr. Baggins, and I'm very fond of you. But you're only quite a little fellow in a wide world after all. Thank goodness, said Bilbo lightly, and handed him the tobacco jar. The end. Now, publisher. Okay, copyright about the publisher. And the last map, the Grey Mountains. Oh, the Great Mountains. Let's zoom in on this. Let's zoom in. Gundabad. Oh, that's where the Mount Gundabad. Hey, clap, clap, clap. In just some time, like we have like 4 minutes before the end. 4 minutes. Let's see. Mount Gundabad. This is where Dane came from. Grey Mountain, Misty Mountains. Okay. Our Aaron did Rivendell's over here. Ford. Hobbington. Wild. Edge of the Wild. Okay. And they came to Rivendell. They came this Grey Mount, the Misty Mountains. Goblin Gate by Irie. Okay, this is where they came. The Carrack over here. Bjorn was over here. The Old Ford. Let me zoom last a little. The Old Ford. Great River of Wilderland. Well, they came out of the Goblins' land here. They got lost somewhere in here in the middle. Came out over here. Found Bjorn is here. Get over there. Let's see. And what about Mirkwood? Gate, Forest Gate, Elf Path, Enchanted River. Oh, this is the Enchanted River that they the Enchanted River that they got lost. That what's it called? Bomber fell in and lost his memories. And a bunch of spiders over here. Okay, okay. Forest River. Elven King's Halls. They were quite close to the Elven King's Halls before they got lost. Mountains of Mirkwood. Old Forest Road. Woodman. Spiders. Not sure if there's like. I think these will be elves, I guess. Because they escaped the Elven King's Halls and down this river into the Lake of Esgarant. And the river running over here, okay. I'm not sure if they... Yeah, I don't think any of them went into a forest road. The way back, I think they went like... They said they went around the Great Mountains, didn't they? Or did they go through the waste on the south? No, I think it'll be the Northlands. The Grey Mountains, Withered Heart. Okay. The Desolation Mountains, the Iron Hills. No, wait. Where's Mount Gundabad? What? The Iron Hills. They came from the Iron Hills over here. What's Gundabad again? Who said Gundabad? Oh, is this? No, it's the Goblins. The Goblins came from Gundabad. Yeah, this the Gundabad. Oops, wrong button. No, stop running. So the goblins came out from there. The goblins came up from there all the way here. The goblins that were in the Misty Mountains gather here. And since they're all wiped out, the path will be easier for them. Rather than take Mirkwood again. I guess they got a little bit at least Bilbo got a little bit traumatized by Mirkwood. Want to go back to it again. Oh no, at the south, wasn't like at the south of Mirkwood I think they said the necromancer was the south of the Mirkwood or something like that. So I see. So yes, indeed, they came back on this way. Quite a little journey. Quite a cute little journey. Now, this is it for the Hobbit. It's actually really good. I need to watch the movie now to see the differences in it, because for some reason they added. The one thing that I know that is a big difference that they added a love story for some reason. But also I want to know what's different in the Battle of Five Armies. I also want to know what's different. And how they got lost in Midwar. 3-hour movie for the chapters you read today. Yeah. How many chapters are there in The Hobbit? Oh, I do a watch along. Oh, 3 chapters. The Desolation of Man, the Battle of Five Armies. The battle was just 2 chapters. I mean, battles are fun. Battles are fun. I love to write battles. I love to read battles. So it's a shame that Tolkien doesn't take too long in battles, but it's understandable considering Tolkien's history. But they went a bit more Hollywood in the Hobbit, I guess. They went a bit more Hollywood like the Hobbit than the original trilogy. The original trilogy was, I think, a little bit more faithful to the books than the Hobbit. No, literally, the chapter we read today are in the 3rd movie. Yeah, I think it's pretty much that. But again, like I was saying, a battle is fun, so they went a bit Hollywood-like when making the movie, and extended it just to make it more interesting. Because it was a long time, you know. It was actually a long time. A lot of things were happening in those battles, so it's kind of understandable that it was a little bit stretched. Because Tolkien just glosses over things. Battles in general take quite a lot of time in books in general. We just read fast and because, you know, it's exciting. But Tolkien's style is just glossing over battles. But considering his background like as a World War veteran, yeah, I don't think he likes battles very much. It's understandable. One thing that annoys me about reading is that he lacks quite a lot of commas, where I would put a lot more commas than he would. He also does some very long run-on paragraphs. Like there's quite a some paragraphs have quite a lot going on into them. For me, paragraphs have like 1 or 2, 3 sentences at most, and then when I change thoughts, I make a new paragraph. Like, and he has a lot things that could be added to the sentence. He adds a period, so that it feels like the thought is disjointed. Like, even though he's a linguist, the style is not that. Kind of frustrating, I would say. His style is kind of frustrating to read. I'm not sure, like, why he does it like this, but man. Let's see. Already behind among the dwarves dead lay many dwarves and many a fair elf. Yeah, he also does a little bit of. Well, this one is a cute repetition. Like, already behind him. Among the wobbling dead lay many men and many dwarves and many a fair elf. So he does many men, dwarves and elves that should have lived yet long lives merrily in the wood. Now this is how you would phrase it. Behind the goblin dead lay many men and many men, dwarves, many men, dwarves, and a fair elf. That should have lived yet long lives merrily in the wood. But he does, like, it is understandable that he makes a little bit more dramatic the way he writes like this, but it's a bit frustrating. I am unsure. It is fun sometimes, but it's a bit too overused. And as the valley widening, his onset grew ever slower. His numbers were too few. The onset of Thorin, he was attacking. His numbers were too few, his flanks were unguarded, and soon the attackers were attacked. Then they were And I could rephrase this without removing this end. Facing the way, blah 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 blah. Then I would cut here. I would put a... I would like, this would be a paragraph and that would be other. The bodyguard of Bo came howling against them, and drove in upon their ranks like waves upon cliffs of sand. Their friends could not help them. Like, those one is not so bad. Like, I would just put a paragraph here. But there are times where like there's like 3 different thoughts in one paragraph. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you making the paragraph so long? What's the purpose of it? What's the purpose of it? Make it more readable. Make it more easy to read, man. Make it more easy to read. Even though he's a linguist, a master writer, there's still some weirdness about his style that I find it frustrating. But it is overall a very great story. A very, very great story. It has that like fairy tale epic feel to it. A very epic feel to it. Where like there's not many details. Where things are a little bit more vague and left to interpretation. And characters don't feel so human, honestly. They have their flaws, but they're like... Humans are messy. Humans are messy. You'll see a... You can describe people with I don't know, adjectives. Try to describe and say how a person is like. Kind of difficult to word this in a proper way in English, but you can try to describe how a person behaves and try to predict. And yeah, this person is a hero. This person this person has a hero archetype. This person is very composed and blah 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 and things like that. But people change. People are messy. Depends on the mood. It depends on the situation. People can wildly vary, even without reason, from day to day. Some days someone can be happy and go lucky, and the other days person is more serious and normal and things like that. We vary a lot as people. In the epic stories, these things don't happen. People remain as they are. They have like archetype. People remain as archetypes in stories. It makes for my more epic feeling, but it also makes the characters feel less human. It makes them feel more heroic, but again, less human. And for me, for my style, I like to write human characters. I like to write flawed people that are relatable. Not exactly relatable. People that you could relate to. People could, because for me it's more about the world building and for me it's more about the escapism. So the more you can identify yourself living that world, the better. Though I don't make like people do lots of modern jokes. Like I don't make comparisons like to modern culture. Like I just introduce thinly veiled modern references. I do it as like once in a while if a character is doing a joke. Well, in an isekai, the main character is the one that does it. Every other character is his own character. They're not there as a reference, as something that's relatable for the character. The only thing that's relatable for the character is an isekai that I write is the main character. Everything else is like his own world. What I do is just describe it in human ways, in more relatable ways. I use the main character perspective of a human from Earth to describe things in a relatable way. But the characters are their own people, and I try to make them more human, even though they're not human. But I try not to do this sort of thing of archetype. I try to make him realistic without being grim-dark. Realistic without being grim-dark. Because unfortunately quite a lot of people have this thing with if it's realistic and it's not dark and it's not horrible and it's not bad and it's childish. No, you can make something very happy and gentle and nice without being grim-dark. But anyway, that's the Hobbit. What's there a cover for in this PDF? No, this is the cover. Ugly. Oh well. I guess this one is slightly better. That was the Hobbit. And I have no idea what I'm gonna do next week. I have no idea if I'm gonna do reading. I'm gonna continue doing reading streams. I kinda wanna do more AI art, so maybe I could do like 2 weeks of a week with 2 times of AI art. I kind of want to go back. Like, I'm itching to go back into game dev. Have ideas of games that I want to make. Have ideas of games that two ideas of games that I want to make. But yeah, those are like they're like massive projects to do as a solo person. So I'm like, should I even try this on stream? Because stream is like always an excuse to work on something. I use streaming as the sort of thing to work on something that helps me. But I'm wondering if it's worth it. I'm still not sure what I'm gonna do now with I'm gonna read more. There are books that I want to read. There are things that I want to study. There are other stuff that I could make. And I try to keep like a schedule, things like predictable. But I don't want to like I want also some freedom to vary things up. Because variety is the spice of life, and I'm addicted to making different things. I'm addicted to changing things. So who knows what's coming next week. But for tomorrow, there is We Were Here with Lapis. Friday, there is AI art. Saturday, there is AI War. AI War, a 4X that I'm addicted to. And Sunday, there's Warcraft. That's it for my schedule. Now, need to actually look for someone to raid. Who do I raid? Who do I raid? You know what? Caresius is playing Spectral. So... Wait, no, I think I raided him recently. Who do I raid? I want to raid someone. I don't have a lot of people though that I could raid. How long has it been since I raided Pencil? It's been a long time since I raided Olga. Decision. There's actually a lot of people that I could raid. It's a fun one, so. And it has been quite a long time since she has not been streaming a lot. That's why she has not been streaming a lot. So might as well give her a little visit. So there's your raid message. The first suggestion that Twitch gives me is Volga. The first suggestion that Twitch gives me is Volga. Okay. She's doing a strange horticulture, but it says just chatting, but I recognize this game style. I think it is strange horticulture, which is a girl-coded game that's pretty fun. But still. Is your little raid message now. Take care of your waifus, take care of your husbands. I'll see you all tomorrow late at night. Bye bye. Guillermo's gonna start the milking now. Have fun.